Our major accomplishments last year, of course, we've got our ACFR, they call it now, our Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. We've gotten that for the last 33 years now. We migrated all of our financial, utility billing, and court software to the Tyler Technologies cloud. We just did that last month. So that went a lot easier than we thought it was going to be. So right now we're on the cloud. Haven't had any issues so far. We've helped the service center implement the mobile service orders. The guys can take out iPads and do everything they need to do out there without having to come back in or use paper. So Lisa has been helping them with that. The utility building, we got a new stuffing machine so we can do that a lot faster and easier. Or purging our records. We did streamline the routes so that everything works a little better. We helped the service center. And we're also implementing the bilingual literature, and we've got that on the automated phone system now. Our major challenges and goals, of course, we need to maintain our fiscal strength over all enterprise funds and the general fund. We are trying to implement an online access for departments to do their own requisitions online. It is something that the software will do. We just have to get it all in there correctly. We are working with human resources to get the payroll process a little bit better in ADP. ADP is a very large software. It does a lot, and they do a lot on their end that we can't control. So we have to really work and try to get that going a little better. We're taking on the accounts receivable for the Meridian Center to help in that area. We're pushing out the e-statements for utility billing. The more people we get on that, the easier it will be. And we help all the other departments when they need software implementations or whatever we can do to help them. We've been down one employee for 6 months. It's getting where it's kind of straining all of us. But we haven't had time. We had year end and we had audit. Now we've got have budget, and so hopefully in July we're going to start looking again and get somebody in there. So that'll really help. As you can see, we just kind of went up the bare minimum on our personnel services. That's our 5% for everyone. But we are split across the whole city because we do things for everybody. So we're in all the utilities and general fund. So that's why it looks kind of low there, but that's because we're split out. And the utility billing staff just goes to the utilities, so they're not in general at all. So although we have 8 people, we have a very small salary line.
Okay.
And that's it for me. Do you all have any questions or concerns about finance? Good. I'll take that as no. And the next one is law. And we'll have Chris.
Is this on?
Yes. Oh, and I put the little cookie thing for there.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, similar to Donna's presentation, mine is pretty streamlined, and I've got Greg Nickel here as well. Please jump in if you have any questions on law department. Welcome them. First slide. I think most of you are familiar with the overview of the law department in terms of personnel. That's a layout of all the positions. There have been no changes other than we have filled that assistant city attorney position that was vacant for some time. And now we've got Devin up and running in that spot. We do split it up in terms of the municipal court side, which handles the weekly docket and everything else, and then the office of the city attorney, which handles obviously a lot of the items that come before you and the civil items. This is, again, unchanged from last year in terms of the responsibilities of the city attorney, essentially in-house counsel for the city to assist staff, to assist the commission, overview on some of the items that we work on. Just as a review for what the Newton City Court is, you talk about misdemeanors, traffic violations, and then nuisance environmental cases that happen within the city limits. Obviously, anything felony goes to state court, but that's an overview of what we handle in our court. Greg's been a good leader in terms of being on the forefront in terms of what a city court should look like in Kansas and laying out certain goals and principles to be fair and equitable, to be efficient, to be professional, and to be courteous. And oftentimes I'll get compliments from defense attorneys from Wichita that practice in all sorts of courts, and hey, you know, your team is really professional and they treat us right, and they can still do a good job and do it in a friendly way. And throughout that entire team down there, it's just a good experience for what could normally be a bad one in terms of waiting, and obviously going through an adversarial criminal process isn't always fun for the defendant, but we try and do our best to stand by those principles and do it in a fair way. They do a great job. This is just a quick snapshot on the cases filed. And Greg was mentioning to me that this is in line with national trends. You see that drop for about 5 years and then a slight uptick from 22 to 2023. And that's just more of an FYI in terms of the cases that are coming through city court, and again, in line with national and I believe state trends. Here's an overview in terms of the caseload. Obviously, a majority of the cases that we handle are traffic, but I would say that most of the energy and passion, at least, is on the person crimes, and especially domestic violence, domestic battery cases. We've got a victim witness coordinator that's dedicated to personal crimes, does a great job. We take a lot of pride in handling those cases efficiently, professionally, and really focus on them in terms of training, in terms of best practices. Chief's team got 2 DV investigators that do a great job in terms of investigating crimes, providing our prosecutor with what they need to prosecute them, and just very pleased at the way that those crimes are handled. And obviously, for the city commission, that's something you should want in the community, that those crimes are handled appropriately and handled well. So we put together, it's kind of hard on the civil side to show. Obviously on the city court side we can show cases, and that's a good chart. On the civil side we can show the number of files that we open, but that's really hard to quantify in terms of time expended. Sometimes we'll open a file that we can resolve same day. It's an easy issue and we can put it to bed. There's other files that have been open for 5-6 years that are ongoing. So it's not, you know, an apples to apples conversation, but we have opened approximately 54 files this year.
What do you define as a file?
You know, there's not an exact process or definition for what a file is. It just kind of, it feels like a file. Some things that can be addressed in an email, other things, hey, maybe there's going to be some research, maybe we need to save some correspondence, maybe we need to pull some records. Let's keep a shared file, and then that's easy for me and the assistant city attorney and the paralegal to all exchange information. Back to the city court side, in terms of operational achievements, credit again to Greg and to Pat, Rachel. They've been very involved in a driving while suspended diversion program, which we've done diversions for some time, and we've worked with drivers with suspended license for some time, but we've kind of given it some formality in terms of a person that comes into court, their license is suspended for whatever reason. Maybe they have 1 open suspension, maybe they have 10. But what we do is we hold off on the prosecution. They enter into an agreement where they're going to work with our staff, specifically Pat. He's going to tell them, here's what you need to do to get your license back. Because it's kind of similar to when we've talked about environmental cases. Our goal isn't, let's just get a conviction. You know, they're driving, they're suspended, let's go. Let's go to court, let's get a conviction, let's move on. It doesn't really help. We want to help them get back, right? So if they want to put in the effort to pay off those tickets, to have a plan to get their license back, we think that's good for society. We think that's good, positive. So we've used resources to assist them with that, to provide them with those answers in terms of how can you get your license back. That may delay the case being closed out, but we think it does serve a greater good, and it's been successful so far. Those are some tough cases when there's multiple suspensions stacked. You've got a ton of tickets. You've got a limited income source. You know, we're not going to hit 100% on those, obviously, but we do what we can with it. Another item, maybe you've seen that tablet on the landing area there at City Hall, the electronic court check-in, and that just goes back to we want to streamline the process. We want to limit wait times. We don't want people to have to wait in line and stand in the room waiting to hear the prosecutor and everything else. So just another small step in terms of that experience. And then the third item too, that's an item that Greg's worked on for a long time, but has taken the extra effort on a number of these remote appearances for defendants. Chief Scott Stan, who's the warrant officer, and he'll pick up people. There's been times where Greg's been able to make a call where maybe a jail doesn't normally do a sort of streamlined remote appearance process, but he'll call, save the trip. We don't want Stan to have to drive to Wichita, pick someone up for court, do these transportation costs and time. If there's a way to do it remotely, you know, we try and make that happen. There is a balance on that still in terms of there are certain proceedings that just need to happen in person, and Zoom isn't necessarily appropriate. But in terms of someone that's just going to make an appearance, they just need to get an attorney, we don't necessarily need to have them in person, so we try and be cognizant of that. Some of our budgetary challenges, obviously outside counsel is always going to be a wild card. We take pride in handling everything that we can in-house when we can. There are certain items that are outside of my expertise where we need to lean on outside counsel. Those items can be expensive. Those items can be time-consuming. We use our best judgment on that, and it's just so hard to predict year over year. We could get 3 projects that require outside counsel, and that incurs costs, or there could be none. So that is obviously a budgetary wild card. Obviously, fluctuations in caseload, there's charges for that. We do have 2 contracts with 2 public defenders that will represent anybody that's facing jail time in our city court. The city fronts those costs and then collects, so there is a delay in terms of getting that money back. An increase in caseload obviously is going to be an increase in our public defender expenses. Credit card transaction fees, we previously had the users absorb those costs, and now we have taken that in the department. I think Donna can speak to it, but that's been a citywide process of we're all taking those costs and then kind of moving forward with it. So,
what was that decision based on?
Actually, this is sorry, not coming out. Try again. These were credit card fees that were being charged to utilities because it was just ran through, all the credit card fees were running through the utilities. So we looked at it and decided, well, engineer needs to pay their part, and Chris's group needs to pay their part so that we can get it off the utilities.
But I
now
mean,
we're only paying the percentage that usually goes to the credit card company.
right, there's
We're
still a
not paying the
convenience fee that the user will pay, but there's a portion, is that right?
Yeah, we used to pay, now during COVID, we paid for the fee on the online and the phone. We don't do that anymore. That's went back to the user.
so do
But
you
we
feel
just pay
like
the percentage.
that it's too onerous to put that on the user, all of those fees for using the credit card?
It's just another thing that goes on them. I know the county, I think, does get that credit card fee back, but we never have. We've always paid this portion. It's just the 2 or 3% that you have to pay on every credit card transaction.
Okay.
And we've not ever done that, but it is getting higher and higher. But it's another thing that the customer would not like.
Well,
You know,
no
they don't
doubt.
like the $1.25 on the phone thing. They don't like the $1 on the online, but they're paying that now. This would be an added percentage.
Do you know about what that amount is per year,
Oh,
just an
it's-
estimate?
It's, I would say close to 100,000 maybe with all of them.
For the fees?
I mean, because the utility and all of ours and, yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot. That's why we were picking it up for a while and decided we can't do this anymore. Those one fees, you know, but
More and more I expect
yeah.
to have to pay
Right.
a convenience fee.
And we look at
More than-
all the credit card companies and make sure we're getting a good deal. Because right now, we're with one that we think we're going to try changing, so it doesn't cost us so much. So we're looking at that before we'll put it back on the customer. Try to save it that way, because it is hard out there for them to pay everything. I realize that.
That doesn't include auto drafts, does it?
Auto drafts are free.
Okay,
That's why we like to have them set up.
yeah, all right.
A question real quick about the DUI, the version stuff.
Yeah,
You said there was resources that we have, outside resources?
sorry, internal resources in terms of our staff time dedicated. So Pat, who works with Greg in the court administrator's office, he will set meetings and dedicate time to meet with them. He can look at why is your license suspended? Who do you need to call? Those sort of items. So we use those resources and I guess put them in touch with
Okay, so
those.
they're they're not, we aren't contracting.
No, no,
or
no.
paying or-
No, that's all in-house
Okay,
absorbed.
okay.
And then the final item on the budgetary challenges, just on IT in terms of server management being increased, and I think Donna can confirm, but that doesn't necessarily hit the law department item, but we do, we are responsible, obviously, for some of those increased costs by our use of IT.
Yeah, and they have been moved to the cloud as well, so we're all floating up there somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what a wonderful thought.
it's a cloudy day.
Every day.
And then just for objectives, continue that transition to cloud-based court database, and then also to enhance address and contact information for tracking. So Greg's worked with, who's the entity that we just contracted with? TransUnion, in terms of being able to contact people that maybe have an outstanding debt. So we're trying to resolve these items without it going to some sort of warrant situation, some sort of unnecessary arrest. We're trying to reach out to people so they're aware of an obligation or a court date, do those things. And I think handling that outside the court, I think, is better for everybody. It's more efficient. It's better for the end user, and it's better for us. Then that's our final table showing the proposed budget for 2025 with a slight increase on contractual services, commodities and supplies staying flat, and then the increase on personal services. I would stand for any questions.
And you'll notice on 22 and 23, he really only had half of a assistant city attorney each of those years. So that's why it looks a little different than 24.
How many staff do we have on that?
Yeah, let me go back.
Wait, did I miss that?
So you've got the court administrator, Greg, who's back here, the deputy court clerk, probation diversion officer, prosecutor's assistant, victim witness coordinator, the municipal court judge, who's not a full-time employee. She's an independent contractor. The city prosecutor, that's part of his role, and then he's also listed below as assistant city attorney. So he splits his time. And then obviously myself, and then my paralegal. That's our department. We previously had Miguel part-time for translating, and we've since gone to like a phone line service. So those cases were sporadic and kind of unpredictable in terms of when we would have them. So now we just use language line if we ever need to. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just want to know that these were individual positions, like one person does that stuff. Okay.
We do have a lot of crossover for absences. A lot of those roles can cover for the other. And again, just kudos to Greg in terms of setting that up so that if we're shorthanded, we can be 2 people down and the court docket can still
But
run
they're still
efficiently.
internal. They're still internal.
Still internal.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess the only other cost would be we talked about would be court-appointed counsel. So we just pay them on a per case basis.
Okay.
gets the clicker.
You do.
La Policía.
Okay, you get me for 30 minutes. I'm going to hold you to it, so. This is going to be interactive, so I beg of you, please interact. Ask questions. This will go a lot smoother if we have a conversation. So
You're not nervous,
I can't
are you?
promise anything, so. We'll just hit, oh, I guess I get the clicker, don't I?
I can run it if you want me to, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can't do two things at one time. Multitasking is not my greatest attribute. This first slide is just we're kind of hit you with the strongest things first, and then we'll, a little easier as we get a little through. As you can tell, 2025 proposed is a little higher than it was back in 2022. There's some, go to the next slide if you would, Donna, and we'll kind of talk about what 2024 expenses were, and that's our biggest challenge has been personal services, which covers our wages, overtime, benefits for staff, our retirement contributions and whatnot. And then our contractual services in 24 also includes our building maintenance, our vehicle cost, everything that go along with providing the services, tangible things. So on the next slide, 2025, I've kind of put them together so you can see what 24 is looking like right now and why we have things. And then I put the very, very similar slide as to what we're expecting in 2025. And as you can see that there's a considerable jump in our personal services, and really wanted to cover, there's a lot of good things that are going along with that, but it does come with a cost. And for a number of years now, we've been struggling just to find people. We've been covering this for a lot of years. We've had this conversation. But the good news is it's taken us a lot of time to recover, but now that we're here, we're there. It's costing us a little more because our folks, we had to do a lot of soul search in the last few years. And how do we get these folks to come through the door? How do we get here? How do we keep them? Well, we're keeping them longer, so we have to pay them more, the longevity of our officers. So these are very good things. But what comes with it was a cost, is our retirement fund. Too, because they're staying longer, our longevity's there. It's going up $110,000 just on our retirement fund, just for the police department.
That also
Sounds
went up because it increased also, the percentage, the state increased it.
Right. This is the
By
most
almost
it's
2%.
increased in a number of years, as I understand it. So that's not a control thing for us, but it kind of is controlled because we're keeping our folks longer, which is that's the positive I want to point out.
You mean the state mandates that you increase the contribution from you to each employee?
Not to each employee, to their retirement savings.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what I mean.
It went from 22.86 to 24.61.
Okay.
So is the state contributing less and we're contributing more?
I don't think the state contributes much, if anything, to it.
Yeah.
Not as
okay.
much. It's the employee and then the city contributes to it.
Yeah, okay.
Then it's our health insurance. We're hiring is going up. It's going up 107,000 just for the police department. We're hiring little younger employees. They're staying longer. They're getting married. And what younger folks tend to do is to make even younger folks, which is what that's why our health insurance
You
is.
finally figured that out.
I know. It's crazy.
Maybe
That's
your
what
new
goes
hobby.
on.
Yeah.
So
A
that's kind of
single, a
we-
single person is about 7,000 a year. Family is close to 20,000 on the insurance. So there's a big
Right.
difference.
But they're here, they're a part of our community, they're here, and that's what's keeping them here longer. So it's gonna cost us a little more, but it's far cheaper to maintain our current employee staff than it is to continually hire, train, and then we lose them to another community or whatnot, so we keep them here. So all this is a very good, I know it sounds like a lot, but it's actually cheaper for us in the long run.
Do
to
you
it
feel
this way.
like that our wage level is close enough now to surrounding communities that this is going to be an ongoing trend, or are we still, a large percentage point behind, say, Wichita?
Well, we're considerably less than Wichita, considerably. Several years ago, we did a wage increase for our police department because we weren't even being competitive at the time. And trying to get folks to come through the door. Once we can get them through the door, and we're going to talk about that a little later, but this is a good time as any. Once what we've changed in our culture, what we have, our benefits that come along with it, our retirement, and our schedule, just everything that we have here in Newton that's what keeps them here. We just hired, and I was going to talk about this later. We just hired we started 2 new additional officers just yesterday. We're going to do a badge painting tomorrow morning. Of course, you're all invited. It takes seconds to do, but it's a lifetime of importance for these officers, and of course for me as well, because we're pinning a badge on 2. But that being said, we hired 2 yesterday. One was a local young lady that just graduated college. So we waited for her to graduate, and now she started with us yesterday. And another was an officer who was already a full-time officer in Colorado who just needed to get out of Colorado because there was the atmosphere, the relationship with the city commission, the community where he was coming from, it just wasn't compatible with what he was looking for. So he was looking to get out. He didn't know where he was going, so he applied all around us. We came and did some ride-alongs with our folks. Several times. He was interviewing us as much as we were interviewing him. He chose us over everybody else. And he's come with us because of our culture. He rode with our youngest officers. He was trying to see if this was a good fit. And his first question was, when he did an interview, was, what's the city leadership like? What's it like in the community here at
And it still came.
And he still came, I know, despite our mayor. No, it's just, that's what, it's their leadership here and the support that you have to our city manager, to city staff, it's a community, what we have, and that's what he was looking for. And he opted for us over everybody else.
Wow.
And then we have one that's waiting in the wings, and he's just finishing up background right now. We're full staff, but I have a couple we talked about getting married. He's talking about because his wife, he just got out of the military. She's wanting to move back to her hometown in Texas. So she's wanted, so we're on the verge of maybe losing that officer. And it's probably for the right reason. You have to follow your wife.
Yes.
But
Whether you want it or not.
as long as they're leaving for the right reasons, I think that's the right reasons. But we have one waiting. He's a certified officer out of Pennsylvania. He too was interviewing us. He has chosen us to come here. So he's looking for a place to live. And so we're going to get him on board as soon as possible. So that's what we have going for us here. Well, as I said several years ago, we did a lot of soul searching for not only budgetary, but what we have to offer outside of just wages alone. To answer your question, are we behind? Yes, we are. But I'm not asking for any more than what we're doing now this year. Next year may be a completely different conversation, because if we're not in the conversation and I can't get them to the door to see what we have to offer, then we're missing out on a lot of good folks. And I don't think we want to be on that, because it's all about customer service. And if we don't have somebody that's not part of our culture, not part of what we want to offer for our community, if they're not being good stewards of taxpayers' dollars, they're not being what we have to offer here in the community, if they're not good to our folks in-house, then I can't guarantee they're going to be good to our citizens out on the streets. And if they're not good, if they're not a good fit, we're certainly not afraid to ask these or invite these people to seek employment elsewhere. So that's what we've done over the last, and we've had to recover from that. And that's where we're at right now. We're at the recovery, we're at full staff, which is the anomaly for most agencies in our area, in spite of our starting pay, because they're looking more than just pay alone is what we have to offer. But it's going to run its course pretty soon. So we're going to have to stay. All I'm going to ask in the next couple of years is that we stay in pace with everybody else around us. We don't have to be at the top, but we just can't be at the bottom.
Yeah. What time's the penny?
Penny, 8:30.
8:30.
And we'll do it right here in the commission,
In here?
right in here, yes.
Okay.
You're more than welcome to attend. It takes seconds and seconds.
And who again are you pinning?
Harley Lang and then Antonio Diaz.
And they haven't gone through, or they have gone through the training?
They're starting our field training. They're in our process right now. Miss Harley is going to have to go to the academy, and we're anticipating she's going to have to go in probably July. She'll be there for 14 weeks.
Okay.
And then Mr. Diaz, he's already gone through it. He's certified. He'll just have to do the reciprocity through the state of Kansas because he's already certified in the state of Colorado. Which is usually, it's an online thing, so it takes about 2 weeks to get that accomplished. So it's cheaper for us to not send him away for 14 weeks, so we're actually gaining. So, and in his experience, he's got about 4 years of experience in law enforcement. Now we just want to mold him to how we want him to interact with our citizens here. Wow, I covered a lot in one slide. Probably our equipment transfers, this is probably going to be Donna, more of a Donna question. We do our equipment replacement plan before. I know many of you have already know this, but several years ago, we went line by line. What do we need? How can we extend the life of our equipment? Not just purchase things just for the sake of purchasing things. We put them on a plan, and then we want to replace the ones that's cost us more money in maintenance. Our vehicles are our number one costly item, but we have to have vehicles to drive around. You probably noticed over here across the street, we purchased 5 new vehicles this year. We'd like to buy local, but that's always not an option because our dealerships in our area, they don't offer police vehicles, and we have to have police vehicles. So we've searched out, and we found these particular vehicles in Ohio, and we were able to save $3,000 per vehicle to have them shipped here from Ohio in lieu of getting them in Wichita or any place like that. We were able to save. We purchased 5. Plus, we've gone to a different outfitter a little bit. We're saving us a little money that way too, about $1,000 per car to get them outfitted. So it's taken us a little longer than we like, but we saved about $20,000 by going with all the way to Ohio to get vehicles shipped here, outfitters, all that kind of stuff. So we're really looking for those cost-saving measures as much as we go line by line. And before we were already looking at a 3-year plan. Now I'm looking out 10 years. So we don't know exactly what it's going to cost us 10 years from now, but we at least have an idea by the rate of inflation, what cars are costing us, what they cost us 2-3 years ago. It's almost doubled what it's costing us now. So that's why we're looking at every savings, every line with a fine-tooth comb, and with Donna's help, she's really the miracle worker. She's really one doing all the work. Really, I'm just the face of the organization, which is not very good at this point.
He's just trying to butter me up. He wants something.
That's right. Yeah. I know how this works.
Well, he was looking to be in the red in his MER in about 5 years or 4 years. And we were able to stick a little extra in there last year in police and fire to help him kind of get over the hump, because fire's having the same issue in a few years. And then with his kind of pushing out his purchasing and stuff like that, we were able to go up just $30,000 this year, and he's good for the future. So it really helped, just that little pump and him spreading it out. So police is doing good right now for the future. Now we just have to work on fire.
They're always behind. Well, sorry. I have to get a little dig in there to the. One thing I want to point out to you. I'm sorry. You get me for 30 minutes, so these are the jokes.
The comedy should come from up here, though.
Sure. I'm sorry. We talked about staff. I want to make sure I'm covering everything do you have any questions or anything so far that I'm not covering?
I thought you might get there, and I'm sure you will. You've spoke to the increase that you've had to do on wages for recruitment and retention. Has it been more towards recruitment, elevating that starting wage?
Yeah.
Or has it been a balance between recruitment and retention wage increases? Can you speak to that?
Sure. Yes. It's actually both. To start our starting wage, we had to move everybody up, because I can't, if I start somebody at a certain dollar amount one day, and then I hired the guy before that, or employee the day before that, if we didn't move them up, then that starting guy our folk is going to be, so it's that compression. We
Right.
had to move everybody up. So that's what's costing us a little bit more, but that's keeping the retention aspect of things, because that's the whole key. And that's what I really want to focus on, is the retention of our folks, because it costs so much more to train. So if we're not taking care of those folks that have been here 3-4 years, and we hire somebody in at a higher rate, they're going to look to go someplace. Our folks are heavily recruited everywhere they go for training, heavily recruited, because of our vetting process is so good.
Yeah.
And our training is we are very hands-on in our training, and I can't afford we as a community can't afford to lose these officers. So I hope that answers your question.
It did.
It's the compression.
That's what I wanted to hear, is that we're taking care of the retention side as well as the recruitment side. But how far are we off from our surrounding communities? I mean, have we stopped the hemorrhaging, or?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
And we haven't lost anybody. We lost a few officers a couple of years ago to surrounding communities. But I think because of what we have to offer outside of just a pay alone, that's what I was saying earlier, eventually we're going to have to look at getting so we're stay competitive, so we don't lose the current officers we have, and then to get good people come through the door later on. So it may be a wholly different conversation next year. We'll see how things go. But right now, we're doing really quite well.
Right, but I don't want to ask next year of $5 per hour for everybody if the ask needs to be each year for the next 5 years, a smaller increase is
Right.
kind of.
Sure, that's absolutely true. We've talked about doing that this year, about increasing, what would it cost us to increase now, either additional 3% or an additional 6%, up to 6%, because it's going to take up to 6% compared to the highway patrol, because these are the folks that we're dealing with that are in our local highway patrol, which they're about 400 officers down, and they've increased. The KBI increased their starting wage 25%, and that was all compression, all in 1 year. Hutchinson, Wichita, all the surrounding smaller agencies around us, KDOC, which is the Department of Corrections, they're all paying considerably more, starting pay, and then once they're there, they're actually paying more. I'm probably putting too much out there for the general public to know, but all of my folks know it. And
Well, yeah, they talk.
absolutely talk.
How many have left but then come back?
We've had, depending on the reasons why they're leaving, I don't like to bring them back, because, and that's because if they're not, if it depends on their reasons for leaving, because if it's a cancer that's walking out the door voluntarily, I prefer that they just
You hold
walk
the
out.
door open for those.
That's right. And then depends on their reasoning for leaving. If it's for a good reason, okay. If they're just looking for the grass to be greener on the other side, no, thank you, because there's no guarantee that they're going to be invested in the community to stay even longer.
Right.
So I'd rather start over with somebody that's fresh and get them a part of the community, get them a part of our organization, and have them stay that way.
Right, but if the starting wage isn't enough to get them to have that conversation, then
That's right.
you can't sink that hook.
I just want to be on pace with everybody else around us, and that's our primary goal. But you're right. Should we be looking at increasing it, 3 additional % now versus waiting next year, and now we're 6 or 9% below? In some cases, right now, we're even further below.
Well, and that's a concern. I mean, if we're chasing CPI, that's one thing, but if we're already down and we can't chase the inflation.
We are wanting to do a compensation and classification study. And we're going to start in that at the end of this year. And that's what we were kind of telling people, to wait and see where that ends up to help us. But we do have money to be able to put into that new plan. So, yeah.
Can we just do one of those?
We
feels
did.
like we
It's
did
been
one.
like 4
years?
4 years ago. Yeah. It's taken a while just to get us where we were supposed to do that, because we couldn't do it all at once. So 24 was when everything was in place. So that's how long it took us to put it in place. And now we're having to look at another one.
Rich, I'd like to make a mention of 2 things. One, it seems like it's always a catch-up game as soon as we increase wages, which we did several years ago, 2 years ago. Then the city of Wichita and your Park City and your Mays, they do pay studies and then they increase wages. And so this is back and forth game. So it's important that we continue to do these studies. That being said, we know that a study is coming and that we're going to have to increase wages, and we don't want to be hit with the 10% next year because we won't be able to
Right.
afford that. So what we plan on doing this year is, as soon as the assessed valuation comes back, the finance department, and I don't think we do a great job of touting our finance department and how they work behind the scenes to tighten the budget. For example, health insurance, that $107,000 health insurance increase, we spent 3 hours poring over every single benefit that the health insurance we have provides and how we can reduce that increase. So we can take that difference, let's say we save $10,000 and set that aside for increases for the police department. Finance handles all that. How can we create this bucket for something like this? And that's something we're actively working on. So we will know more as soon as assessed valuation, because it's such a big part of it's such a big part of his budget where we're at, because there's fixed costs and there's variable costs. Those fixed costs need to be met. Those variable costs are the ones that we continue to work on. So I really like your comment about making sure that we're not just waiting until next year and then saying, here's the plan, give us 22% of general fund budget, and we have to come up with $2 million. That can't happen. That won't happen. We have to sort of prepare ourselves there. And all the department heads know that we might have to make some sacrifices this year and next year in order to get something like a pay plan implemented, because everyone is increasing their wages around us, every single one. So I just wanted to make that statement. Finance does a lot of working behind the scenes to try and make things work.
So based on Rich's comments and questions, you feel good, but do you feel great about?
That's a pretty good assessment. Yeah, I feel good
Because
at where we're at
it's
now.
okay to feel good, but it's probably better to know that you feel great about.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then what do we need to do?
I do feel good, and that's the part that I wanted to emphasize, was that it's, once I get them, the folks that are looking, they're going to get in law enforcement. They're going to wear a uniform somewhere in law enforcement, because that's their calling that they've taken on. So they're going to wear it somewhere. But if I can't get them to the door just to have the conversation to
Yeah.
show it's not me. That has nothing to do with me. It's the folks that on my team that's bringing them here. When they come and do the ride along, they see what I have to offer. But it's also the leadership from the city commission on down.
Yes.
It's what's selling our community. I insist that our officers get their butts out of the seat of those cars and be a part of the community. We partner with our hospital. We partner with our school district. I insist our folks be out. That's what they want, and especially this younger generation. That's what they're hungry for, is to be a part of a community, be a part of something. Well, good, because that's what our culture is to be a part of. We're not against the community. Now, do we still have to write tickets? Yes. Do some people just have to get arrested because of a variety of different reasons? Yes, we still have a job to do, and that keeps order within our community. So, but we do that with the balance that it's about our customer service as well. And we do it with respect. Anything less than that is just not acceptable. That's what we have to offer here, and that's what a lot of folks, what's bringing up. That's why we're full staff generally. But we still got a lot of training to do to make sure that we uphold that same standard.
So I'm thinking trade-off, because I'm seeing you're still one person short. I mean, if you had the very best, if you felt at the very highest level of provision with officers and protection, you would want that one position. So would the trade-off would it be safe to say that it might be better to put our focus on from good to great with what we're talking about, and consider a staff position later on, maybe next year? Does that make sense? Because I'm thinking two different things. I'm thinking where you're at from good to great.
Right.
And also that you still need one position, another position. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So,
And I would agree with you. And as the community grows, and we're on the cusp of some really great things here in Newton too, and that's going to grow, and that's going to become with time that we're going to have to increase our force to help provide that protection. But right now, to even be great, what you're suggesting to do, to focus on the current people we have
yeah,
now,
okay.
primarily. And we have one spot that we're filling just as soon as this young man from Pennsylvania can find a place to live, which is still yet another challenge for us, we're going to be absolutely full with the anticipation of losing one.
And this budget presented
It will provide
includes
that.
that position.
Yes, it
So-
provides that.
So it's not a matter of, hey, in order to keep and retain everybody that we have, we should leave that one position vacant. That's not on the table.
Okay,
Yep.
good,
Right.
okay.
Well, it shows you how important, here we are working on expenditures, the revenue side of it is really important, and without growth, your revenue flatlines, so.
Right.
You know, we've worked hard on both ends, and we appreciate you guys working hard on your end.
That's the trouble, expenses never flatline. Expenses never go down
No.
or stay the same.
Yeah, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's,
And we're constantly evaluating, what do we need to spend money on now? It's a constant evaluation all year round, every year. And we're trying to do our part for sure.
Where did you want to go from here?
Oh, I think we've pretty much covered all the way at the end.
Okay.
And we still got
Do you-
12 minutes.
12 more minutes? Fantastic. So happens I have 12 more items to talk about.
I'm just curious, do we have, for the city officers, like an impact or something, like program for them if they need to seek?
Oh, yes,
For mental
we
health or
do,
whatever.
yes.
Okay.
We go through, actually, that's a citywide
Okay. Thing.
benefit that we have. And our officers, we utilize that. And we absolutely encourage our folks to go and talk to somebody. But that's not just for the police department, that's a citywide.
Right, right.
And we get 12 per year per family. So it's a great program to have. And we partner with them. We partner with Prairie View. We talk to,
Okay.
there's a lot of folks because the mental health is absolutely
I
imperative.
think that's, important when we talk about retention, is that, that flexibility to be able to take care of themselves too, and put their families
That's right. We encourage that.
before. I think that's huge when it comes to retention. So I was just kind of wondering if we were doing some of that already, and it sounds like we are.
We are.
Okay.
Good, great question.
He left the room, so now you got to stall.
Oh, no. All right. How many members? Okay, we
you
got-
did such a good job that he's just afraid to do his presentation.
Right. Yeah, he's going to well exceed me. One quick note I'd like to talk about is our training building across the street. We're hopeful we're going to get started on that here by the time, before the end of the year. We're in conversations with the city engineer, with Suzanne. That too is a huge recruitment and retention tool as well. Even right now, in our current facility, quite frankly, it's very difficult for me to get my entire staff in one room without violating fire code. Yeah, no, that's why I'm mentioning this real quick, why he's no longer here. But this facility is going to allow us to be able to do that, and plus keep on our trainings right on pace and on par and the right standards of what we all expect our officers to have. So this is a very good thing, and we're hopeful that it's going to come to fruition by the end of the year and first of this next year, that we're going to have that completed. Because we send out a lot of, we're not allowed to, because of, we're trying to be good stewards of taxpayers, send folks out for trainings. I have a lot of trainers that we send out across the state, in some cases across state lines, to train, like our domestic violence instructors, our use of force instructors, and things like that. Having this facility will allow us to bring folks into Newton, and in lieu of sending my folks out, we can bring folks here, and this is what it's a force-on-force type trainings, along with classroom setting. So that's the forecast part of our budgetary, so just keep in mind that we're going to be spending some dollars on that. It's a really good thing. Very positive for us.
Good.
Very positive for Newton. Good.
Thank you. Great.
Bet. Do you have any other questions? Feel free, and you think of something later, you know how to reach me. Just give me a call, come see me. You're all more than welcome to come visit.
So we gonna do the library?
Libraries, I told her 9, so she probably didn't think, I didn't tell her to come early, so that's my fault.
Let's go fire and EMS, and then we'll do her.
And we can do, okay. You wanna come up here? No, what's an offering? You want to run your thing?
No.
Okay.
I'll use yours. No. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. Okay. So, some of this is redundant, but I wanted to make sure that everybody had the same information and going forward. So, our mission at the department is to provide, we're in a constant pursuit of excellence in all the things that we do and provide to all the people that we serve, as well as not only the community members, but visitors and so on and so forth. As Newton Fire EMS is kind of unique for this area. We are a true dual role department, so we provide both fire and EMS services. In addition, we are an all hazards department. We're responsible for fire suppression, for emergency services, for rescue, vehicle extrication, technical rescue, so that encompasses several different disciplines: high angle, low angle, confined space, water, structural collapse, et cetera. So we need to have lots of training and expertise in all of those areas. Additionally, the county looks to us as the ESF, or emergency support function, for hazardous materials for Harvey County, even though we just respond at a responder level, operations level of hazardous materials mitigation on incidents. That's where our mutual aid agreements and so on and so forth are very important with the surrounding counties. So we'll call in Wichita or Sedgwick County, McPherson, to come help with the hazardous materials incident. As previously mentioned, the emergency support function, we're responsible for 4, 9, and 10, which is essentially firefighting, search and rescue, and oil and hazmat is what the county will call on us. They look to Newton Fire EMS to be the county representative to fill those emergency support functions during a disaster or an emergency situation where they set up the emergency operations center at the 911 center. Additionally, we serve in community risk reduction, trying to get ahead of this snowball effect of what's happening around us all the time. And that is encompassing, public education and prevention, as well as code enforcement. We do fire investigations, as well as our community paramedicine initiative. These are all primarily done for eastern half of Harvey County. So not only the city of Newton, but eastern half of Harvey County is what we do. So what have we been up to? This graph looked really cool earlier. Now it looks kind of jumbled. But the gray area in the center, that is our EMS responses. So you can see that the vast majority of the time that we're doing things, it is EMS related. In 2023, we ran 4,303 calls for service. Of those, 3,670 of those were EMS related calls, so about 87%. We have 53 sworn members. One, we're on the cusp of having an administrative assistant. We used to have one. She took a different position in the city. So we have extended a conditional offer of employment, so we're working our way through that, much to this happiness of the big guy that sits in the office at the other corner of the building. And for my own personal health and welfare, that we are getting somebody to help with our billing, because he's getting angry. And he's much bigger than I am. Yeah, Deputy Chief Lehman. So we operate out of 3 stations, so we've got 16 personnel per shift. out of those stations. We run a 24/48 schedule. And so we're trying to disperse our resources throughout our response districts and trying to be effective in our response. That has proven difficult at times, for sure. Oddly enough, while our calls for service continue to increase, the calls of multiple calls happening at the same time is increasing as well. So we used to run, second, third, fourth out calls, so four calls all happening at the same time. Those happened, but they were kind of the unicorns. They didn't happen that often. In 2023, we were on multiple calls or several calls happening at the same time 38% of the time, as opposed to 34% of the time in 2022. So the frequency of calls is increasing as well as the same time that they're happening all at the same time. So it all requires additional resources and a better distribution of resources to have an effective response force and an effective response time. And so we're having to divide our assets and resources a little better. Last year we did generate close to 1.5 million in EMS revenue, so billables that we collected off of EMS transports. In addition, we collected, I can't remember off the top of my head, but a significant amount of money through contracts for services with other unincorporated areas in the county through county distribution, as well as contracts with North Newton. And last year, in 2023, we did contract with 2 townships and 2 cities in Butler County. We're not doing that anymore, and that really didn't provide a whole lot of income, and that was the deciding point, that the costs were exceeding the revenues in that response. So how often are we running? We were specifically calibrated to meet the needs of the system. There are times that we're falling short of that. These graphs show the numbers of incidents. The left one is fire as related to EMS incidents, as well as the simultaneous calls happening at the same time. So you can see not only do the second out calls, those numbers are increasing in frequency, but third, fourth. Yesterday we were on a 4th out call, and then we ended up with a 5th out call with, and that was kind of cool. So
Vehicle accident.
yeah, that was the 12th of Maine call.
There was one out on the highway too. Did you get on that?
That was out of our jurisdiction. Right. So we stop at 34 or exit 34, just north of exit 34 on 135. That was in Heston's jurisdiction, and fortunately, they didn't require additional transport units or assistance because we were already on our 5th out call. So, and typically we'll call Heston to help in the interim till we can get some backfill coming in. Let's see. So where are we going? As previously mentioned, we've got 3 stations. This depicts the majority of the county as regard to responses. And you can see that the dark blue is Station 1's district. The narrow pink heading out to the east is Station 2's district. And Station 3 is in the orange in the bottom right-hand corner. Those obviously overlap and intersect with each other as needed. But Station 1 has a pretty large area of coverage, and we're trying to work our way towards getting more assets and resources north of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe tracks, because that's an Achilles heel for us. We serve approximately 250 square miles on EMS and about 102 square miles on fire. So we're putting lots of miles on apparatus and trying to cover a lot of property and people in those areas. So in our pursuit of excellence, we're going to try to be proactive in the delivery of the many services that we're expected to provide to our citizens. And to do that, we're going to really use a lot of data-driven decision-making. We've got good electronic record keepings. We're slowly but surely gaining ground in the quality of data that's getting put into those systems. And we're able to have those help drive some of our decisions in the directions that we need to be going. We're trying to stay ahead of the rapid growth and development that is on the cusp of happening. It is happening, and it's just gonna, I think before we know it, we're gonna blink and there's gonna be all kinds of stuff up and going and happening. We're trying to utilize National Fire Protection Association for and industry best standards and best practices as a guide for our personnel, for station locations, for operational decisions, how we do things, where we do things, and all while trying to be very prudent with our taxpayers' dollars and do what is in the best interests of our stakeholders, both internally and externally. We've been very fortunate in utilizing grants to supplement some of the needs in our organization. However, you all know that that's not a sustainable form of revenue or funding. We can keep applying for them, but you know, you're only as good as the competition next to you in a grant. So our challenges that we're facing, you know, we're always in the ever-increasing demands of service. We continue to see the increases in our demands for our services that we're providing, despite our best efforts in our community risk reduction initiatives. Recruitment has continued to be a problem, partly because we're that dual role service that we do provide both fire and EMS disciplines. The other part of it is the proximity of where we're located to other departments that, as Chief mentioned earlier, they're paying significantly more. People are willing to give up riding an ambulance if they could go work at a fire department and do XYZ and make more money. So we're working hard. If we can get them in, we try to win them over with our culture and our wonderful personalities. So we're working on recruitment, and just like Chief said, we're trying to take care of the ones that we have. Not getting to the burnout stage, but definitely not at the rust out stage. Those little incentives, just making sure that we're taking care of the ones that we have. Pay, behavioral health, benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So we're working hard to try to do that, and finance has been instrumental in helping us do the best that we can do there as well. So our increasing costs, if you can find the supplies, much of the supply chain issues are kind of over, although we are still experiencing drug shortages here and there. So if you can find them, the price is significantly higher. It can be sometimes as much as 40% higher than what we were paying a couple years ago. You know, when we purchased an ambulance in 2021, it was $225,000. And last couple months, we signed a contract to get our name on a list for $340,000 for the same ambulance. And we won't get that until probably the second quarter of 2027. That's how long the waiting list is. And that 340 is best guess estimate of what it's going to cost. So it's a little unnerving, but we're trying to be proactive. We've got 2 additional EMS units that are scheduled already to have remounts done. And by remount, we take a box off of an existing ambulance and put it on a new chassis when that chassis miles out. And so we're getting 2 life cycles out of 1 box, and that has significantly benefited our budget and our municipal equipment fund. It's helped stretch those dollars. We can recognize a savings of about 35% on doing a remount as opposed to buying completely new everything. So we're trying to be proactive in those realms. But our next remount, we won't see that until beginning of 2025, with the second one coming in mid-2025 to late 2025. So funding, to cover the cost of the provided services, funding is always an issue. We're limited on our funding. We're funded by the general fund, as you all well know. And so contracts for services that we provide, the property taxes, and then our billables are the ways that we try to fund our operations or try to offset some of the expenses of our operations, although we're not coming close. I mean, we're about 35% of our expenses we're recouping in contracts and such. So we've been lobbying with state organizations, Kansas Emergency Medical Services Association, to try to leverage our voice collectively as an industry in influencing the legislature to put pressure on the federal government for increasing Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements. I can stomp my feet and pound my fist all day long, and they're not going to listen to me. But if we can collectively come together as a state organization, we do have some leverage there, and we do have a voice collectively. And oddly enough, we were selected for cost reporting, CMS cost reporting. I'm sure you're aware of that, Commissioner Valentine, for the 2023 calendar year. Thankfully, Donna and her crew were very helpful and very patient with multiple requests. And we submitted our document, and it was accepted. I don't know the final ruling yet, but the feds haven't showed up at the door on 3rd Street to come get me yet, so I'm counting that as a win. But we were able to submit that. Our deadline was at the end of May. We submitted all of that data information, and that's an initiative to try to actually determine what is the cost of providing EMS services. Now, they have improved their reimbursements. It was in July of 2023. Reimbursements did go up significantly, but they still fall well short of the actual cost of providing the services. So we are gaining a little bit of ground. I think it's a little bit of a Band-Aid fix until they can crunch all the data from the CMS cost reporting initiative that was started 4 years ago. So, on top of everything else, we've got legal requirements that we do have a duty to act. We can't pick and choose. If somebody calls, we go. And so, not only do we have to respond, but we have to respond with a certain crew configuration of certified individuals. So we are bound by legal constraints as well. So how are we going to address these challenges? We try to be proactive in our in our approach, you know, increasing community health and wellness, health fairs, public education, et cetera. We would like to continue those conversations of a fourth station and do a four-station model. 2 stations on either side of the tracks. It would provide for the needed redundancy, to increase service capacity, not only for today, but in the future. It would help us decrease our response times to the northern part of our response districts, and it would help us become more in line and better compliant with NFPA constraints. So, you know, we've got the increasing demands, you know, like it or not, our demographics for this region, we're an aging population. And generally speaking, well people don't call the ambulance. So, and oddly enough, it seems pandemic and post-pandemic, people are waiting longer to call the ambulance. So what could be deemed a simple or a less complex patient, they are becoming more and more complex and more severe when we're running calls on them because they're waiting longer to call. And so we're running pretty sick people these days. The recruitment retention, as Chief was saying, if we could get them in, we could win them over. But it's just getting them in, getting them interested. We've been pretty fortunate, knock on wood, that we have extended conditional offers. We're waiting for those background checks and the like to come back, and then we will be at full staff, hopefully by the end of June, is our projected time frame to be back at full staff. Currently, we're down 1 position. Again, taking care of our own. Addressing the financial gap, I talked very briefly with that. Collectively, as a voice, addressing the legislation, utilizing buying groups to collectively buy together with other services around the area. Talking with vendors, trying to get the best price, leveraging grants if and when ever possible. And there's not much we can do with the legal requirements. That's a state thing. So we'll just keep collectively working with KIMSA and other national groups to help us with that. Yes.
Do you guys have someone that you send out, like to the colleges and things like that, that are students that are kind of specializing in EMS and paramedic stuff and fire? Do you go out there to do any recruiting or?
Yeah, what we've learned, however, we have several folks, excuse me, we have several folks that work on their days off at Hutchinson Community College, both in the fire science program as well as the EMS education program. Unfortunately, if we're waiting that long to try to recruit people, we're way behind. So what we're learning is we need to be hitting the middle schools and the high schools and talking to folks there. So we are hitting job fairs at the community colleges and the like, but we're investing a greater amount of time at the high school and middle school levels. Not so much in recruitment, you know, specifically showing here's the benefit package, you know, those kinds of things. But like here's what we do. Here's what happens in a day in our world. These are things that, you know, could be intriguing to other people. So like with Public Works, we go out to the Touch a Truck, and those are young families that come out to that. Well, who doesn't like big trucks, you know? What little kid doesn't like a big truck? So, but that's where your forming those initial interests, and that's where folks are gonna either join or not join. It's really kind of crazy that we're having to go down to those ages, but most of the time, if we're waiting for college, it's too late.
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds good.
good question, though. So, yeah, we do job fairs, word of mouth, as far as recruitment, retention, and the like. We're offering in-house training, recertification training, initial training. We have the impact that we utilize for our folks, make sure that we're caring for the ones that we have and the like. So, so addressing the financial gap, continuing, you know, we're trying to extend equipment as far as we can, but some of it's out of financial need, others out of just supply chain need. If we can't get it, we can't get it. Even though you might have the money, the equipment's not there. So just like we talked about, having to wait till 2027 to get a new ambulance. It's kind of crazy. We have utilized grants in the past, and we've been very fortunate with that. But we'll continue to leverage that as well as best we can. And so here we talk about the reimbursement rates that are happening. The mileage that's loaded mile, and our base rates are higher than these charges that you see. However, these are the allowable rates. So it wouldn't matter if our base rate was $10,000. This is all that they would pay. So then it just makes our write-offs look worse. So we're holding out hope that there will be some good news come out of the CMS reporting, that they will actually realize that it does cost significantly amount of money to offer EMS services, emergency services, period, and that they can no longer rely on the local level to fund that as much as they're having to now. So, you know, and much of this depends on your socioeconomics that you have. And in our demographics for our area, our response area, 58% of almost 59% of our patients are Medicare. So 14% are Medicaid, and less than 16% are commercial. Commercial insurance is one of the best payers.
Would you repeat those percentages again?
Yes, ma'am. Nearly 59% are Medicare. Nearly 14% are Medicaid. Just under 16% are commercial.
How much? Commercial?
Just under 16%.
16?
Yes, ma'am. And then 12% are self-pay.
So in the Medicare, both Medicare and Medicaid, does that include the Medicare and Medicaid Advantage plans?
Yes.
So, because I know a lot of those they can kind of do what they want. They're supposed to still follow those guidelines, but we do see that they kind of do what they want.
Right.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we haven't split it completely down to just the nth degree, but that's the overarching demographic of our patient population. Other questions on that? Okay. So, as I said, moving forward, you know, even though we may not have the funding for it, we want to continue to press forward with this 4-station model, this idea. And our idea is that while we continue to pursue that, we would want to have basically shovel-ready plans on the shelf ready when we do identify the funding sources. So we've started to assemble a group of internal members to help with a station design, and looking at our data, we're going to start trying to nail down the optimal place for the station. It doesn't do us a whole lot of good to find the place first until we have the design. If the data suggests that we need this size of station, it doesn't do us any good to go find a piece of ground that isn't going to accommodate that size of a station. So we need to get that information first, and then work our way towards identifying the location. Once we have those two things, we can identify the funding sources as well as the land and to purchase and acquire that. And lastly, work on additional staffing to help fulfill the demands of that. So we'll be considering lots and lots of variables throughout that process. We're working on that in the background while we're trying to continue to provide the necessary services that people expect. It's like, yeah, can't come to your call. I'm working on a station design project.
Are you working on that connection with that individual in Congress so that we can do that shovel-ready project like the South Station and have the federal government pay for
Ideally, yes.
the majority of it?
So there's a couple of different avenues for that. One of the ones is an assistance of firefighters grant. It's called a SAFER grant. It's a federal government grant to help with additional staffing. We fully anticipate making application for that when the time comes. We had considered doing that this last go-round, but didn't want to shoot ourselves in the foot preemptively. So I didn't want to waste that card too early. I'd rather hold it and be able to increase our chances in a few years down the road when we're ready to add the additional staffing for the station. So there is that one, and my assumption is that there will be other federal grants available to help offset costs for community infrastructure projects. So we're keeping our ears open and relying on. We've got a good relationship with Newton Medical Center, and they have an individual within their ranks that's their wheelhouse. They're a grant writer and a grant seeker, and they're digging all over everywhere looking for additional grants and funding opportunities. So so we're continuing to work towards that. So for 2025, our proposed expenditures is on the chart above. And just like what Chief Dunleavy was saying, the greatest increase there is in personal services due to the increase in KPF contributions as well as insurance. And we do have several members in our organization, so health insurance is a big thing. We got young people, and they're making younger people, so it does take lots of money. We do try to contribute a significant amount into our municipal equipment reserve. We've been trying to chip away for the last several years at a recognized and projected several $million shortfall in what is now the very near future. It used to seem like it was a long way away, but we do still recognize a shortfall in 2030. It's about a $1.6 million shortfall in 2030. So with the help of finance and Donna and her magicians, they've helped us whittle away at that. as well as us trying to be frugal with our funds, extending equipment, trying to get the best price, et cetera, et cetera. So we're working to be frugal, but unfortunately, costs are continuing to rise. Our contractual services are going up. Much of that is our billing company is on a percentage basis. So while Medicare and Medicaid has increased their reimbursement amounts, so has the cost of collecting those. So it's just kind of a snowball kind of thing, chain reaction. So while we are collecting more, it's costing us a little more to collect that, a little more. So but we'll get there. Our fuel and maintenance and the like, we utilize the service center as much as possible, and they do a fantastic job keeping our fleet going and helping us keep things maintained and in great service. So it's a team effort. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
When was the last piece of equipment? You guys are very frugal and creative, and I know you've built a couple of platforms for like your brush fire equipment and everything. When was the last one that you did, and share for the room?
We just, well, last year, 2023, we built, I say we, I'm including myself
It's the
very
collective
loosely
we,
in
right.
that we. It was mainly under the auspices of Chief Lehman. We built Brush One, which is another military vehicle that we converted into a brush truck. We did that with one other one that we were able to acquire through an online auction. The last one that we got was through an online auction. The first one we got of this style was we got that through the Forestry Service. But since then, it seems like a lot of the military surplus through the Forestry Service portion, that's really dried up. I think the Department of Defense has recognized that they can sell them on consignment with these auction houses and collect some revenue back. And I think that's what they're doing now, a little more so. And so we were able to pick this one up out, bought it on an auction, and then Chief Lehman and the crews, they outfitted it. Now, much of the equipment that was the pump and the tank and the like, those larger expenditures, those we were able to acquire through 50% match funds through different grants and the like. And and they're great. They don't go very fast, but when they're there, they will go anywhere.
Well, and it beats, I mean, you guys got creative and you saved us a lot of money to have those pieces of equipment available.
Absolutely.
For those types of situations, and that goes unnoticed, you know, and it doesn't, somebody sees a bright, shiny piece of equipment and go, oh, look what the city spent, you know.
Yeah.
No, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that equipment.
Yeah, and it did. And it hasn't been without its qualms and, problems here and there, but for the most part, we've fared pretty well with it. And our wildland urban interface capabilities they've quadrupled in the last 5 years just off of these pieces of equipment. We had squads that were basically regular commercial vehicles that you could respond with, put a tank and a pump in the bed of it and go, but they get stuck really easy, and they just can't carry much water effectively and the like. But these things, like I said, they don't go very fast, but when they're there, they do a lot of work. They're very effective at what they do once they're there.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we have Waiting in the Wings, Miss Carrie from the library.
And hello, Kyle. Good to see you here.
Oh, I.
Good morning. So I am Carrie Cusick. I am the library director. Good morning. So pardon the paper addendums here, but I did want to give you a little bit of an overview showing the first couple of months in the new library. As you know, we opened April 1, and so looking over the month, you can see marked increases in most of our markers. Physical circulation, even our digital circulation, the number of people walking through the doors, people using our study rooms, all of those. It is not unexpected. It's exactly what we expected, exactly what we want. Obviously, these numbers, every additional time a person checks out a book or is assisted in getting a library card represents an expenditure of staff time, operational costs. What this means for us long-term is something we are still very much going to be parsing out, trying to write a 2025 budget for a new library in January of 2024 when we hadn't even moved in. Felt a bit ridiculous. We don't obviously expect this level of increased usage to sustain, but what that sustenance looks like extending into the future is an unknown for us. And that's something we're going to continue to be addressing. A year from now, when I sit here, we will have a lot better data on what those, what that increased usage and what the new library means for our budget impacts. But celebrate with us. It has been a very busy and very wonderful couple of first months in our new library. With that, the second page is the one that Donna had in the packet, which is our overall proposed 2025 budget. On the left side is our tax levy column. That is the primary one that we will be focusing on. That is our primary source of revenue. However, we do want to give you the overall picture of the library budget because it is not the only funding stream that we have. If you look at the second column, this says SCKLS, that's the South Central Kansas Library System. Most public libraries in Kansas participate in the regional library systems. Those are multi-county organizations that provide consulting services, technology assistance, continuing education, and also grants. The grant and aid program is based on a formula, but it is pretty consistent over time. Fortunately, that money has virtually no stipulations on its usage outside of using it for library purposes. So that is a very nice grant that we receive every year. They do also have competitive grants for technology programs and other things that we apply for and receive when it is appropriate to our context. The next column is state aid. The state also administers a grant and aid program. Over the last 20 years, that funding has dropped to a very insignificant amount of money, but we do have to track it, so we do keep it as a separate line item or separate class in our budget. Again, it does not have a lot of stipulations outside of using it for obvious library purposes. It does have to be expended in the year that we receive it. Senior Mill is the Harvey County Senior Mill Levy funding. We provide a lot of services to older adults in our community. This money is targeted toward our Inlight program, we can only use this money to purchase large print materials. Those are delivered to people who qualify for that delivery service, and they're made available to the general population as part of our library collection as well. The last column is library income. This is essentially our catch-all column. The auditor loves this column because the budgeted and expended amounts often vary substantially, because it's where the money, when people pay to send faxes or make copies, that's where it goes. If they're paying for damaged or lost library items, that's where it goes. We do not charge overdue fines anymore on materials as long as they are returned. That's where donations go. That's where the money from our endowment distributions go. Our new vending machine, that's where that money goes. So it's kind of a catch-all. So I put over on the left estimated, because we're always trying to sort of estimate, and generally try to estimate on the conservative side to be safe. The one in the library income column that I would call your attention to is that top income of interest. When the cost of the new library went well above what we originally thought pre-COVID, the library did step in and agree to contribute $1.2 million out of our reserves to help cover that cost shortfall. The problem for us then is we are not only losing that $1.2 million, we are losing the interest off of that $1.2 million. Year to date this year, we've gotten over $46,000 in interest, but when we make that payment in August and September, that interest is going to drop substantially. So for us, that is a pretty substantial impact to the budget, and one of three that I would definitely highlight that's coming for us in 2025. You will also notice in that column, if you go down to the middle of the page to line item 7560, project cost share payment, that is the other portion that the library is contributing to the new library, and that's $65,000 a year payments over 20 years. You will see that this budget puts $35,000 of that in the tax levy line and $30,000 in the library income. So if you just look at the tax levy, it doesn't look like the full 65, but it is fully accounted for. And that is the second big budget impact that we're looking at in 2025, is adding those costs. So the last page I gave you is just the tax levy budget, and it has some historical information on it to show you trends over time. Going down at the top, so the library board is the group that sets this budget, and they are putting forth a 7.5% increase in the tax levy for 2025. If you go down, wages and health insurance are the next two lines, the top two expense lines. Those are the third large budget increase. So you have the loss of interest income, you have the project share payment, and of course, wages. This represents about a 10% increase in wages over this year. That does not mean that we are increasing everyone's wages 10%. I would note that the library wages and insurance benefits lag substantially behind the city, and it is an issue for us as well because there are larger library systems in the area that do pay a lot nicer. I have two positions I expect to be vacant and recruiting at the end of this year. These are positions where a Master's of Library Science is strongly preferred, and trying to recruit candidates to come live in Newton, because we don't have a ton of MLS students, graduates living in Newton, we have to look at our wages. But we also have two positions that we will be revamping to be at a higher pay scale to reflect current needs. We also anticipate that we will need more part-timers working at the desk because of the increase in library usage. So there's a lot of things impacting that. That's not just a 10% across the board wage increase. To put it in perspective, we're looking at moving our pay scale, the bottom of it, up 25 cents an hour. We are looking to expand our salary ranges a bit because the bands are very narrow, so we're not rewarding longevity. And in the long run, longevity is very good for the library. So we want to retain the quality people that we do have. We do have one additional staffer this year who is on insurance. We converted a couple of part-time positions into a full-time position, so there is an increase in the insurance as well. And again, I do want to put this into perspective. One of the issues that we will have to address long-term, we do good on the individual side of the equation. We are able to pay an individual's full premium, but we don't have the budget to offer anything for family or spouse coverage. So we have had employees who need to add a spouse. It's $8,000 a year for them to add a spouse. A family is over $15,000. That's not sustainable when you're paying $40,000 a year. So long-term, and I set my water down somewhere, and I'm really regretting that decision at this moment. So again, those are our three. Oh, Kathy. This is Kathy Anderson, our board president. Thank you so much.
And the water boy.
If you go down, one of the big question marks for us is utilities. In the new library, we don't have enough data at this point to know. We took 10% of 2023 actuals. That's what the architect estimated. If it goes above that, really the only wiggle room is in salaries. So we hope to go a little above our 3.5% increase of last year. But if, for example, our electric bill is a lot higher in the new library, that money has to come out of the staffing costs because it's really the only wiggle room that we've got. Going down, most of the other line items except for that project share payment are really just minor tweakings, a little bit of guesswork for the new library, but not any substantial changes moving down, as you can see. We do try to have a little bit, you'll see at the bottom, an $8,900 overage, income over expense. I think we got about $7,200 less than was budgeted last year, and we don't know that amount till the very end of the year. So we do want to leave a little bit of wiggle room there. So if there is some delinquencies in those tax payments, we're not in trouble. Any questions?
Remind me.
Yes.
My mind's getting, I don't remember as well as that. The $1.2 million that's in reserves now, you're paying that to us over a period of time?
No, the $1.2 million was in addition to the original agreement, and that we will pay in August, September-ish when that project is bonded.
Okay, perfect.
We also will need to prepay some pledges to the campaign that are still outstanding. So we'll actually have to take out probably $1.6 million out of our reserves and then recoup those pledges over the next couple of years.
Okay. And the payment is $65,000 and you have 30, okay, I'm with you.
Okay, yeah, $65,000 over 20 years for another $1.3 million.
Okay. Very good.
Would you say that the morale for all the employees and the users is much higher now?
Yes, but you also have to realize we've got, April, what do we have? Almost 3 times as many people walking in the door. We're tired, but it's a good tired. It's a beautiful building to work. It's a beautiful space. We still are very much adjusting. 2 months in, we're still very new. All of our workflows are changing. Watching how people use the library is so different. I mean, we had 311 bookings in study rooms. We didn't even have study rooms before. Again, that takes changes in how we do business. That takes software that we have to pay for to manage those reservations. So we're still finding our way, but the overwhelming community response has been positive, as evidenced by the numbers. And yes, it's a busy time, but it's a good busy.
I did also hand you a sheet with the blue lines on it, and that kind of shows you the history that corresponds with hers. But it also shows you what I have put down as the expected tax levy if they stay at their current, and I've used 5% valuation increase. So we won't know until I get the valuation exactly what that number, of course, we won't ever exactly know what that number is, but we'll know closer what it is going to be. So at this point, with their current mill levy, that they're 15,000 short of what their ask is with the 5% valuation increase. So we kind of have to wait and see what that valuation is going to be.
Yeah, and we do acknowledge this is probably going to be a slight increase in mill levy. Our mill levy rate currently for 2024 is somewhat less than it was in 2019. So over time, our mill levy has stayed pretty strong. It was about 5.9 in 2019. It's 5.6 something this year. So we do acknowledge it's probably a small increase in that mill levy rate. But again, over the long term of the last several years, we have been holding steady or lower. That was easy.
Still exciting.
It is very
Every day.
exciting. Yes.
I took a friend that I had here from India there the other day, and he was, you don't see libraries like that in India.
No.
Something to be proud of.
Any questions for Carrie? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will take a 10-minute break and come back and hear from the Senior Center.
visit with us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I am Lynn, the director of the Newton Senior Center. I have been the director of the center for 2 years, since July of 2022. I would also like to introduce Bob Driscoll, who is our board chair, and Darylyn Merritt, one of our participants. Community. The definition of community is the fellowship with others as a result of having something in common with each other. The Newton Senior Center provides this community to many in the senior population of Newton who continue to live in their own homes and do not have the benefit of living in a retirement community. Their community dynamics have changed over the course of time by the loss of a spouse, loss of friends their age, children no longer living in the area, and health issues that prevent them from participating in the many things that they have done before. We also have several participants that have moved from other states to be closer to their family. I am one of them. We need a place to go to start to build community and connections within the larger Newton community. One of the small communities within the center are the pool guys. About 12 guys gather every day and play pool from 8 until lunchtime. They play in a league with other senior centers. They have a great time together, sharing day-to-day life, and of course, in the course of the morning, try to solve all the world's problems. Another example of community within the center is our lunch bunch, as they are affectionately called. About 15 people gather every day to share a meal provided through our meal program, Aging Projects Incorporated. Our meal program offers a well-balanced meal for a suggested donation of $4. You pay what you can. 2 years ago, participants would come in and gather their lunch and go home to eat alone. The center wanted them to stay and eat lunch with others rather than going home and being by themselves. We changed the atmosphere of the dining area by adding tablecloths to the tables and using real silverware and dishes. Slowly, the participants started to stay and eat together. Lunch was served from 11:30 to 12. They would arrive and stay for the half hour, go home, be by themselves again. Now, they arrive around 11:15 and hang out till after 12. The laughter that comes from them is music to my ears. They also socialize together outside of the center, going to Life Enrichment, taking trips with Interurban, and going to the porch on Wednesday evenings. They also come together as a group for other activities at the center. They have become their own little community within the larger community of the center. What started out as seniors coming in and getting their meals and taking them home has become a group of friends. They welcome anyone to come and join them for lunch. So if you need a break someday from the day-to-day grind, just get your lunch and come and join them. Both of these communities make up the larger community of the senior center. Besides the many activities we provide, it is also a safe place for seniors to come and talk. It is important to provide a space for seniors to come and be able to talk freely about whatever is on their minds, things that they may not be able to talk about with their families. We provide encouragement, resources if needed, but most importantly, a listening ear. A place where they can get the help they need in order to stay in their own homes. Staying in their own homes is utmost in their minds. We also look out for each other. The participants are really good about letting us know if they are not going to be there the next day. Because of this, if they do not show up on a particular day, we reach out to them to make sure they are okay. If we cannot reach them, we get a welfare check done. This has been a benefit at times. We also are the eyes and ears to children who do not live in the area. We are a community. Besides pool and lunch, we offer chair exercise and line dancing. Our line dancers participated in the Newton Open Streets in April. We have game night, bunco, and once-a-month potlucks. We also have a choir of around 25 participants that perform in local venues. We are planning a concert on the concrete this Sunday featuring the choir.
We also offer educational programs on many topics, including easy ways to stay hydrated, how to avoid opioid addiction, how to avoid scams, many topics around the aging process. We offer legal aid services and help with Medicare. We also offer free computer lessons and help with navigating smartphones. It does not cost the participants any money to belong to the center. They had charged dues in the past, but people who could not afford the dues did not participate. As a board, it was decided to eliminate the dues in 2023 so that everyone could participate in the activities offered by the center. As a result, our participation has nearly doubled. This also came at a time the commissioners voted to cut our funding from $20,000 to $0. The city did come forward later in 2023 and give us $5,000. In 2023, we had a fundraiser almost every month to help with the deficit in our income. This is not a sustainable long-term model, but it helped build our reserve. In 2024, we are doing some of the popular fundraisers. Trivia night has become one of our anticipated fundraisers. The next one is scheduled for September. As I said earlier, the fundraiser every month is not a sustainable model long-term. As you can see by the paper I passed out, we have lowered our expenses considerably from 2022 to 2023. We have tightened the belt as much as we can. There are expenses that come up just to maintain a building: heat, air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical issues. We have received a matching grant from the Patterson Foundation, which will be used to put a new roof and update the original bathrooms from 1968. We have been painting the inside of the building in stages. In the next few years, we will need to address the flooring. Once I leave the center will need finances to pay a director a competitive wage. We would like to see if the commission would approve helping us fund our day-to-day operations so that money raised at fundraisers could go into the reserve fund to help with long-term projects. There is a misconception around town about exactly what the senior center is. Pre-COVID, the center was a place to come for fun and games. But post-COVID, it is much more than a place to come and have fun. It is a safe place for seniors to gather and be community together. By building the community we have at the center, we are helping to eliminate the loneliness and isolation felt by many seniors that no longer have a community elsewhere. The U.S. Surgeon General recently declared loneliness and isolation as an epidemic since the pandemic. Health impacts have been compared to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. By being community, the Senior Center is helping to combat that loneliness and isolation, and therefore our seniors are staying healthier and will be able to stay in their homes longer. The seniors that participate in the center are still active members of the Newton community, as well as the community within the center. I would just like to say a little something about Darrell Lynn. She is a great representation of some of our participants. She lives in her own home, moved here from California to be close to her daughter. Through her connections at the center, she has found many friends and is quite social in the community because of this. The center builds community within its walls and the community at large. She also has macular degeneration and would still be able to live in her own home, but may need to stop driving. This is something that is not directly related to why I am here, but it is a concern of the seniors in the Newton community, and that is the lack of public transportation. There is still quite a bit of isolation and loneliness that could be addressed if seniors had a way to get around town. In May, the third week in May, Interurban offered free transportation to seniors within the Newton community, and we had 25 people come to the center off and on through that week because they had the free transportation. They still live in their own homes, but are no longer able to drive because of poor health or eyesight. They need a less expensive alternative besides the cab company to get them around town. In conclusion, I would like to thank the Commission for the money they have given us in the past and ask that they would consider continuing that in the future. The senior population is growing in Newton, and we need a place for them to come to avoid loneliness and isolation. We are a community. Thank you for your time, and I would welcome any questions you may have.
Can you expand on your, this part here about the visits with regard to duplications versus new?
Sure. So a new visit is somebody that walks in the door brand new that had never been to the center before. The duplication visits are once you have become a new person, then you become a duplicated person. And that means anytime they walk in the door after that, they become a duplicated visit. So, for example, if somebody comes in brand new to come to the meal program, the first time they come, they would be considered new. If they come 5 days a week, 10 weeks after that, then each time they come in, it adds up to the duplicated visits.
So when they come in and they sign in, I think, if I recall, you had some sort of a breakout with regard to the programs or to the, so if they wanted to do this, they would sign
Right.
here and
So every program has a sheet for its individual programs. So the food program has a sign-in sheet. So when you come in, you sign into the food program sheet. And then we keep track of how many people come for line dancing, how many people come for chair exercise. We have their names so that we also see on there that if all of a sudden they stop coming to that event, then we reach out to them and say, is there a reason why you had to stop coming? It could be various reasons. They could have had an injury or something. They no longer could do chair exercise, or the meal program, they can't drive anymore, and so they've had to stop the meal program.
Did you say they pay, did you say something about they pay dues?
They had paid dues in the past, but we stopped that because when I came on in 2022 and I started asking different people, you know, why they didn't come to the center, it was because they couldn't afford the dues. So we decided to make it an even plane and have participants, nobody would have to pay. Everybody was free to come and participate in anything they wanted to.
Do you have a feel for how many people are using the facility? You know, is there 100? Is there 200? Or, yeah, of the people that come regularly?
Well, on a regular basis, we have, our participant list is about 200 people that come on a regular basis for at least one or more of the programs. And then you can see here that I did break it out a little bit. Our population is 70 and over. We have very few people that are under 70. And then I took the population of the retirement community. What's that?
I said, you have me.
I took the population of the retirement communities because that's always been something that they've said, okay, so 430 people out of that 2,388 people live in retirement communities. Yeah. But 95% of our people that participate in the center live in their own homes. So that's the target that we're targeting. Okay. Is the I mean, we do have some people that come from the retirement communities, but not very few. Yeah.
Right.
They have their own communities there within the retirement communities.
They do their own activities.
In your income so far for 2024, 32,000. Does that include the county's 24,000? Do they pay it all at one time?
No, they don't.
So
they pay it in $6,000 increments. So that would be,
Quarterly.
we would have probably one or two
Probably
maybe
two
in there.
payments.
Yeah.
Well, I want to commend you on managing your expenses and increasing your income, because it's evident in the numbers. You're on track for a 56,000 expense year and a 76,000 income year and everything. So kudos for all of that. And you've done all that without charging dues. So definitely made some changes. It wasn't a decision that was made lightly when this body decided to not fund the senior center. We had no data to action off of. There was no ask. There was no response to what community within our community is being served, how are they being served, and everything. and this helps us understand that, so.
Well, I do appreciate the money that you had given us in the past, and one of the things is there was a lot of disappointment when the funding was cut, but I said, okay, well, let's figure out how we can change this. But we cannot sustain a every month fundraiser long-term. It just, I mean, it worked for a year, but.
Well, I guess my question is where does that other money come from? So in '22, you had 72,000 of income. 44,000 of that was from the city and the county. So where'd that 23,000 come from?
Well, that came from dues, donations. They had a huge gala that brought in
yeah.
quite a bit of
I
money.
remember that.
Remember that?
Yeah. And so then after that, all of that, I mean, with COVID, all of that went away. And so then we pretty much started from scratch with doing the fundraisers and building up the reserve again. We basically were just taking the 20,000 that had been cut from the city and did the fundraisers to do that. But I mean, you can see from the numbers that, I mean, we could survive without having money from the city, but that's we want to do more than just survive. We would like to have that a little bit. And I mean, part of that cut is also the fact that I took the position on not really needing the job but if I were to leave, and I mean, I'm would be 72 in October, that I'm not sure how much longer I can sustain that too, you know, working and being physically in charge there. They're going to have to find the money to pay a competitive wage to someone else to take that position over.
I think it's good for you to do some fundraisers, to do one a month. Yeah, I mean, fundraising builds community within itself.
Right.
So you know, maybe if the gala was a cool idea, you know, if you had your signature fundraiser, you know, but none of us really wanted to cut
Right.
you back then. It just
Right.
was like Rich said, getting data that we could action on seemed to be very difficult, you know, back then.
Well, the fundraisers that we do, like the trivia night has become sort of our signature fundraiser.
Yeah.
I mean, people have, as soon as that night is over, they say, okay, when's the next one?
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
the gala is not a sustainable fundraiser for us just because of the age of the people that are volunteering and having to put that on. It just, it's not feasible to do that.
Yeah.
Would you say that the 200 or so regular users, that the fundraisers, the gala, that most of the donations come from those 200 regular users?
Yes, they do. And some people can contribute way more than others, but they all feel like participating in the fundraiser in some way is their way of contributing. Maybe it's $5 to some people where somebody else could give 1,000. But we try to make it so that it's something that we try to do fundraisers that the regular participants can participate in. The gala probably would not have been an event that regular participants would participate in. So we want the ownership in the center from the participants. So that's why we do fundraisers that everybody can participate in.
Do you have a projected amount that you can, you know, fill your need, or?
No, because like I said, it's not it's, without shooting myself in the foot, it's not a need, it's just a request to help us to be sustainable.
They would take 50,000 if we gave it to them.
They would
Well,
whatever
Yeah.
they could.
But we were appreciative of the 5 that you
Yeah,
found in
exactly.
2023.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't the 20 that we had the year before, but we were very appreciative of that 5. So I'm not going to say that there's a specific dollar amount that we're looking for.
well, I would say though, just that if you want to be sustainable, it is a need. I mean, there is some need there to be, you want to be sustainable.
Right.
So I would just offer that.
Well, we're trying to be creative
Yeah.
in like this concert on the concrete. I mean, a participant came forward and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? And so we're running with it. And, we're getting publicity in the Now. The Now has been very, very good to us and giving us really good positive publicity in the last while. And that's the other thing, too. I have found that we need to change the stigma that's attached to the senior center and change it into a positive place for people to come. And the Now has been very good for us in that way.
And I think that's very important. I think you need to market your community, the senior center, to the community as a whole. And I think you really should invite them to be part of your fundraising element. Because as you've already described, I'm big on succession planning and everything. And with your retirement down the road, you need to plan for that. And that's going to be a big part of a budget deficit that you're staring down. So you need to plan for it now rather than later. Get the rest of the community involved in those fundraisers.
Well, we're hoping to with this concert. We're hoping that we have the community at large that's going to come. And
When is it?
Sunday.
What time on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first time I'm hearing of it, so.
Well, it's been on Facebook. It's been
Yeah.
on What's Happening in Newton. It will be in the Now this week. It's been in church bulletins. We've contacted every church in the area and asked them to put it in their church bulletins. We've done as much, kind of the Kansan and it was also supposed to run it. I haven't seen it in there. I've sent it to Choose Newton so that it's on Newton's website. So, Rich, I don't know, maybe you're just not in the same.
And I'm probably not,
So where's it at and what time is it?
It's on Sunday at 5 o'clock, and it's going to be in the parking lot across from the senior center,
It's featuring the Golden Notes.
featuring the Golden Notes Choir, which is our choir at the senior center. And we're taking a free will offering to help with renovations for the building. So,
And I think I'm going to add, you talk about the community getting involved, the senior. I think we all know and probably could say, even if we don't want to admit it, there are a lot of people out there that are senior citizen age that have no intention of admitting they're senior citizens. I mean, when my husband and I were more active, and I think you guys ran into this too, when my husband was on the board at one time, and there were decisions that were being made in that regard, there were people in the community that don't want to have anything to do because they don't want to admit they're seniors. So that's an integral part of that. I mean, you take a number of people that, to them, the senior center is.
You ain't talking about me.
Yeah. Well,
I did the math, Mayor. the other day.
Yeah.
She is.
well, it's true.
I'm older than she is, I think.
And
And I go to breweries,
well,
not all day.
I think what we're saying is you have to be aggressive in your fundraising, not passive in your fundraising. So partner with entities in our community that have been successful with theirs and model off those and branch out is what I would say.
Yeah, you need to build your future clientele.
right. Well, and that's why we would like to, once we get some of the renovations done inside, my long-term goal is that we have more intergenerational programs to go on in the center. And the trivia night is a perfect example of intergenerational. And we'd like to build on that. I mean, hopefully we can, we're almost to capacity now for trivia night in the center, so we may need to branch out further. So and we extended an invitation to all of you to come to our potluck or to come to lunch or whatever, just to be a witness to what's happening in the center.
Which of your programs would be the most in need of support?
Financially, our programs are self-sustainable right now themselves. It does not cost us any money to put on any of our programs.
Including the lunch?
The lunch is federally funded.
Okay.
And so whatever monies don't come in through the donation, the suggested donation is funded by the government.
Okay.
Now, on the potlucks, though, the senior center has, I would say, footed the bill for some of them, for the main
We
course.
only-
Or if you are offering, you have at times offered the main course.
Right, like at Christmas time, we put on the Christmas meal, but that's all donated by the board members. The food is donated by the board members for those potlucks. It doesn't come out of the senior center budget at all.
So you, but I'm going to step out here and say that the board members probably don't want to always be depended upon to provide those things. I mean, if it always has to fall there, then it's not the senior center really as a whole funding it. It's your board that it falls back to, unless that's just something they want to do.
It's something that they want to do. It's part of some of them can't maybe financially. I mean, if you've ever been on a board, part of being a board member in most nonprofits, there's a financial obligation that most board members are asked to provide to be on a board. So we don't ask that of our board members. And so part of that is the fact that they donate meals for potlucks. And we also have people in the community that have come forward and donated like meat and stuff for our different potlucks, like in picnics in the summer and stuff.
So the operational need is to,
So the funding that we need is actually just for operation, which is really hard to find grants for. You can't find a grant to pay your electric bill, where you could find a grant to do a program, but our programs really don't cost us any money to put on. So,
We probably better move on. We're about 15 minutes late.
Thank you, Lynn.
So there's an obvious interest. So
Okay.
we do appreciate you coming. And
well, again, if anybody has any questions, you feel free to call me or just stop by the center. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dustin hiding over there? There he is.
Or you want me to do it?
Oh. Bless his
Okay.
heart.
So I could do it? Okay, come on up here. We'll get you up here.
hey, Dustin.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
Hi.
How's everybody today?
Good.
How are you?
Good. Nice weather. We got a bunch of up-and-coming golfers at the course today, so it's
Oh, yeah?
exciting to watch. Yeah, we got a junior tour event. A lot of really good players out there, high school kids, so it's exciting to see. Get the PowerPoint started. It's a short one, I promise. It's not Chris's normal 157 slides. So.
It's the new era of things.
That's right.
That's right. Well, once again, thank you guys for inviting me and, going over kind of the 2024 projections and 2025 summary for Sand Creek Station Golf Course's budget. Hopefully you all have handouts. If not, it's up there. As you can see, so for 2024, our original budgeted revenue was, 1.665, and we're projecting to almost get to 1.9. Obviously, that is quite the leap, but I can tell you guys as of today, rough numbers for end of month for May are looking very, very strong. We're year-to-date standing well ahead of our revenue goal, so we are on pace to hit kind of what we had projected for 2024 in terms of overall revenue, and overall expenses are way down. I know the 2024 projected expenses are on there as well. You'll see kind of that big number down at the bottom under the capital outlay, that $400,000. I know Chris had plugged that in. 150 of that was for the Adaptive Open, and then 250 was to invest back into the golf course. I will let you guys know we didn't use nearly the amount of contingency that was plugged in there, so we're well under on capital projects year to date. We're around 110 total, And then the adaptive, obviously, will not be coming out of our bank account. The state budget was adopted. Our request was fulfilled by the Appropriations Committee, and then the governor signed the bill. So that $150,000 in there is granted by the state, and I'll keep everyone updated on that as expenses start rolling in, and paper trail, obviously, for everything. You know, the cart rentals, getting a bunch of other expenditures leading up to the championship that are, you know, quite substantial. You know, 2024 is looking great. I mean, I can tell you guys right now, we're already 2,000 rounds over what we had budgeted, and it's, again, right on pace for kind of the projections. And that's, just to put a little context behind that, we did in 2024 increase our tee time intervals. As of the last, I mean, since Sand Creek Station's inception, it's been 9-minute intervals. We have bumped that to 10. I know it's only 1 minute, but when you run, you know, 275, 280 rounds on a weekend, you lose tee times, but what we do is offer the customer a better experience. There's not as many groups out on the course all at once, and it offers, you know, better pace of play, better overall experience. We've seen it in our NGF results and the surveys from True Review that we send out. We've seen those comments increase drastically from years prior. So it's something that we really wanted to work towards in 2024 and leading into 2025. And then you'll see kind of in the 2025 budget, the revenue projections, again, they're not much more substantial than 2024's projections. That is just due to, again, we'll probably do another small rate increase on tournament greens fees. We have become the premier destination for golf tournaments in this area. Actually, probably across the state, as we host many state organization golf tournaments here in Newton, Kansas, come from all the way from western Kansas to the Kansas City area, and that have come to grow and love the community. That's exciting to hear. You know, definitely just heard that from the Kansas Bankers Association had a golf tournament to start off in May, and we've been longtime partners, and they love coming to Newton every single year. But where I'm kind of leading with that is that kind of explains the revenue increase for 2025, just a small increase in tournament greens fees. We did initiate that March 1st of 2024. However, we do send out contracts for 2024 and 2023, so those rates had not been fully, you know, contracted or guaranteed. So that will start to kind of hit the books in 2025 as far as those incremental increases. The events are obviously aware. Give them plenty of time for notice on that. Again, very little to none attrition, I should say. In terms of overall, you know, support in our tournament business. And then, you know, kind of some of the key points for the 2025 growth strategies. I still believe, and I know Chris has mentioned this in the past, but our, you know, food and beverage department, I believe, is our lowest hanging fruit. It's just something that we have revamped and improved this year. We've offered a lot better selection and higher quality ingredients in some of our day-to-day menu items, which is increased revenue as well as customer satisfaction. I did briefly already touch on the daily or on the tournament rate increase. We did increase our daily fee rate on weekends and weekdays as well. Not a very substantial increase. That does help, you know, increase that bottom line that you guys did see on revenue. One of the biggest initiatives for 2025, we have not started this in 2024, is dynamic pricing. I'm not sure, I think we've talked about it a little bit, or Chris has in the past, but dynamic pricing is essentially what the hotel industry is known for. Obviously, if anyone here is a Chiefs fan or been to Kansas City at a Chiefs game, you'll know that a $80 hotel might charge $300 during a Chiefs game. It's kind of the same idea in golf, but it's a lot, you know, smaller in scale in terms of price increasing. It's something that we believe is going to be very successful and can be very successful. I can, you know, go into that at a different time, but that's something I do believe would be in our best interest, just with how far in advance people want to make tee times at Sand Creek Station. It's exciting. It's a really good problem to have. Again, we really want to harp on player development. June is player development month in the golf industry. You know, getting the juniors involved, hosting junior camps. We have a junior clinic coming up, hosting junior tournaments, high school events, just overall player development, growing the golf community as it seemed to boom post-COVID, obviously. We had, again, talked about increased revenue with the corporate outings and the greens fees. That also goes into, some of our upselling packages. A lot of these tournaments look to outsource player gifts, golf balls, et cetera. We make 1 or 2 phone calls and, we can easily land a, $15,000, pro shop sale. Takes us no time at all. The margins aren't as great. Those are built into the budget as well and cost of goods. We are sending out bid proposals to continue to, host these collegiate championships. Next year in 2025, we're hosting the NJCAA National Championship again, which is very exciting. This fall, Wichita State has decided to come back to Sand Creek Station. So we're hosting our second Wichita State Invitational. It's a Division I college tournament. And then we will have another PGA Tour Q school in September, which is, it is the pre-stages to getting your tour card, but it's huge to be able to host an event like that of that caliber and see some of the world's best golfers looking to make their way on tour. It's exciting to be chosen for one of those. And then the last thing, we just obviously capturing customer data, retaining emails and correct phone numbers to, better enhance marketing strategies, overall participation in, coupon codes or some surveys we send out, just better, build better feedback. And we do a pretty good job of that already, but you can always improve, especially capturing emails in the world we live in. A lot more people have email and use email for almost everything now. So it's substantial for our marketing efforts at the golf course as well. And then lastly, I already touched on it, but again, the NJCAA National Championship is going to be back in 2025. Very exciting. Central Links Golf, we have, Chris started the Railer, what was it now? 12 years ago. And, we're looking, obviously still hosting the Railer. It filled up in record time this year. So we have 156, amateur golfers all in the Midwest region from Nebraska, Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, Colorado that all come to compete in this championship. A couple of past champions in the Railer are actually on tour. They play for the big paychecks, as they call it. And we're looking to also, thinking to start a lady Railer. We would love to get that involved as the game of, women's golf has grown substantially as well. So that'd be another exciting addition to hosting some of these amateur events. Just again, building the brand, building the reputation of Sand Creek, building the brand for the city of Newton, and municipal golf as a whole, which is very exciting. And again, we partner with Keisha. We love hosting state championships. We had 5A state here in May. The compliments from the parents, I wish I wrote them all down for you guys, but I'm sure I need to do that for next year just so you can kind of read down that list of how thankful they are. One, that we're hosting state. Obviously, it's not a huge revenue driver, but it grows the game of golf, helps out high school sports, and just the level of appreciation that they have for the way that they're treated when they come here, not just at the golf course, it's at local businesses, local restaurants. It's very humbling, and it's very exciting. Again, that was a brief overview. I know, we're kind of running behind a little bit. Didn't want to take up too much of the time. I'm definitely open to any questions. That was all I had for you guys this morning.
What's the biggest infrastructure needs you have there? Is it, as far as the improvements that need to happen out on the fairways or in the sand traps or whatever?
Yeah, the biggest infrastructure need is going to be, it actually saved money in the long run. It's a huge project, but probably going to be bunker renovations. Bunker and irrigation renovations in the next 5 to 7 years are going to come into play as the golf course reaches 20 years old. We've done, we basically put Band-Aids on wounds with the bunkers in the past. It's been fun. I've been out there myself in the wintertime digging out some of the bunkers with James, so it's always a fun project. But there's some newer and better alternatives to keeping those bunkers in great shape and retaining some of the more expensive sand that we could purchase to give ourselves, a higher quality feel. We really want to stress, the brand of Sand Creek Station, retain retain that brand and what, the city has built.
You got us back on time, so kudos for that.
I try to be fast.
I was out there last night, and I can tell you guys love the property. They were painting doors and doing all kinds of cool things.
That's the biggest infrastructure need. I know there's still some other things that, obviously, if you guys have been out there, the cafe, it'd be, I still think there's a lot of potential for some more seating and more of a, sit down and come hang out feel, more of a family feel.
I've said that before. I'd like to see a place for people to eat out there after you get
Yeah.
done golf. You have a drink with friends.
At one
or
point, I thought
eat.
there was some outside seating kind of plan.
There is, and we had that actually in the capital budget for this year, but the reason we didn't purchase new outside patio furniture for that is because we wanted to maybe potentially see what the future would hold in terms of a little project for that, and then do it all kind of at one time. We have been, and I know myself and Chris have both kind of been approached about, the same thing, just kind of renovating that area and wanting it to be, more inviting, more, sit down and relax in the evening feel.
And then my other ask would be is hopefully we can get some of that marketing data and metrics from the Adaptive Open and fold that into your marketing.
Yeah, it's going to be, I would love to see that as well, especially just the total economic development, or economic impact, sorry, and kind of what that does bring to the city. It's going to, I mean, we're a huge case study for the USGA. We're the first municipal course to host this championship, coming from a world-renowned golf resort in North Carolina. So next year they're going back to a private sector, but it's still exciting just to see kind of what it's going to bring to the community, and super thrilled that we got that chance and hopefully have more in the future.
The only feedback that I've got that you might think about sometime, and there's probably reasons it was this way, but local memberships, the people that live here feel like they should pay less than people that are members from out of county.
Yeah, and that's, you bring up a great point, Rod. That is something that I've actually, been in talks with Val and kind of my bosses too, is, as we hit that price point, I know we have had annual pass holder rate increases over the past 3 years. And that is something that I've heard as well, and that I think, would be worth, one, maybe it even opens up to local pass holders have a little bit more advantage on the tee sheet. They can
You guys are
make
the
tee times more in advance. But no, it's a very good point. That's definitely a topic of discussion, and just wanted you to know that we've been aware of that and have been mulling some ideas as well. Because I know in the past when Sand Creek Station first opened, the pass holder structure was a little bit complicated. It was non-resident, resident, 5 days, 7 days, senior, non-senior. We simplified it, but I think, we might be to the point where we made it a little too simple. And then,
You guys are
trying to
the
get to that.
experts. I'll lean on you. I'm just giving you feedback.
You got this.
But
No,
yeah,
I
wouldn't want to
appreciate
run our Wichita golfers off, because we have a lot of really good people that come from Wichita.
We do. 92% of our rounds are from outside of Harvey County.
You need to play more, Rich.
I got a day job.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Dustin.
Yeah,
You
thank
did good. Yeah.
Now we're going to hear from Beth and the Economic Development Commission.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have Jennifer Mueller from my office is here with me, and Ron Lang, he's part of my board. He's on the executive committee. So at any time, if you have any questions about what I'm sharing with you, feel free to ask any of us. So I visit with you guys a lot, but I'm just going to kind of give a brief overview of how we're structured, because not all of you might be familiar with that. So each one of the municipalities fund us, and then you appoint members to my board, and then our board oversees the economic development. So they approve our budget, and then we come and make financial asks from each one of the municipalities. So the city of Newton and Harvey County, you are our largest funding partners. So you each appoint 3 members, and then also an ex officio position, which Daniela, as the city manager, is the ex officio, and then Zach attends as a guest. So we work very closely with the staff here. The funding formula was created back in 2008, and it was a formula based on population and taxable valuation. And so from that, the figure of the ask was given to each one of the communities. There was a period of time where the EDC asked for more. It kind of, from 2008, gradually went up each year a little bit, and then there was a 3-year period where there was a tax that went to the EDC as well. That sunsetted in, I believe, 2017, maybe 18. It was right around the time that I came on board. We didn't renew that or re-ask for that. And then when I became the director, we looked at our accounts and realized we're not wanting to take money and put it in the bank to build up a bank account. We just want to ask for the money that we can use. So we went back and we've been asking for the same amount as 2008 for the time that I've been the director here. So that's the ask again, is that same amount. Do you guys have, or
I did not have anything to put in.
did you want me to?
Yes,
Okay, I wasn't
if you
sure.
have copies, yes.
You have copies? Yep.
You want me to hand those out?
Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're asking for the same, oh, maybe wait for Leroy. We're asking for the same amount. I did have to kind of, what I did was looked at the last 2 years and where things actually ended up at the end of the year and kind of reallocated some funds based on where the actual use was going. So you can see that some changes were made within the buckets, but the total ask is the same. So salaries, increase that a little bit. We've had such an uptick in RFPs the last 4 years, and so it's just Jennifer and myself, and so the amount reflected there lets us bring someone in on a part-time basis to help us with some administrative duties that really are hard for us to get to now with the amount of workload that we have. So moved around some things there, and then just made some small changes, like some of the educational events that we would attend now have online options. So if that's a possibility, then that cuts back on travel expense and things. So really the same ask. It's getting harder and harder each year to ask for the same amount that we did in 2008 because, you know, everything's more expensive, rent's more expensive, utilities. But we are making that ask this year, and hopefully we'll reevaluate that and see what it looks like next year. But these buckets are getting a little tighter, and it's hard to juggle around to keep that ask the same. But wanted to also share, so we have an annual meeting each year. That's usually in the summer sometime. So kind of share with you things that have happened since our last annual meeting, which was last September. So since that, we've had, so that was a huge announcement because GF was included in our last annual meeting. But since then, we've had some projects and some wins that have occurred representing $24.4 million in capital investment and 145 jobs. So that's still pretty impressive for our community to have that amount of growth here. RFPs in 2023, so RFPs are requests for proposals that we get either from site selectors, from the state, or for direct contacts. And so we responded to 35 of those, and those typically are cumbersome, and I usually reach out to your staff to help with that because you would think that they'd be the same questions, but there's always questions that we have never seen before. So I had, in 2023, 35, I had 7 site visits come from those and 4 wins. And then so far in 2024, we've responded to 19 RFPs. We've had 4 site visits, and we've announced 3 wins, and there are 2 more that are still underway, and the announcements haven't been made yet. So the project activity is really great. Manufacturing is doing really well. We were really fortunate, blessed by Suzanne was part of that team that, you know, gave us the KLP, that you guys, you know, supporting that all these years when there was pushback that things weren't happening, but we're now at the realization of projects occurring there, and so having the product inventory has been wonderful for what we're now seeing come across. So that's the recruitment side. Jennifer, one of her main goals is to do the retention side, so she goes out and visits with our local companies. She wants to make sure you're happy, healthy. If you're growing, how can we help you? What are your challenges? Kind of acts as that intermediary. If there's something that they don't feel comfortable sharing directly with the city that they're located, they can share that with Jennifer. She also helps them find resources to assist them, and then she promotes them to the state. So one of the examples is with IMF. They're out here right beside the industrial park, and she worked with the state, and they are now making a video for Made in Kansas. That's pretty exciting that the Department of Commerce is coming here and making a video. It's a solely woman-owned company, and their products are pretty cool here in Harvey County. So we're trying to find more opportunities for things like that to market, which leads me into marketing, which is our other area of focus. We attend Team Kansas events. We work with a company called Site Location Partnership. We just partnered with I think she's called Community Creative Andrea here in Newton to help us market on a small basis. But that's the area when you're overwhelmed that kind of we don't get the focus that we need to on that. So we're excited to be working with her and do a little bit more marketing. And then something new is product improvement. As I mentioned, prior to me being here, we were taking in more funds than we needed to spend. And so we did have a pool of, we call it our reserve, but it's our bank account. And how can we use those funds to help make improvements? So one of the ways was to get the option that Suzanne helped us work with for additional land, since we have land available, but we don't really have large parcels anymore, and so we were able to get the almost 80 acres. And then with the high school, with the new career pathway, that's something that the EDC is helping, and we're helping pay for the build out of that space so that we can have that electrical pathway out of the high school for Brooks Trade Center, which feeds all of Harvey County's students. And then we're also working, and we were hoping that we would have it ready for our funding request, but we were working very closely with Chris and Daniela on an agreement, because the EDC agreement has always been kind of, you trust us to do what you fund us for, or the mission of the EDC, and that's always been how it's worked with all of our funding partners, but kind of formalizing that more, and so we have something in writing. And so we've talked about it for several months, and our board felt that it needed to be more an interlocal agreement rather than an agreement just with the city of Newton. So after working through that with our attorney and Chris taking a look at it, we were at the point where we all felt comfortable, and so now we've shared that with all of the other municipalities so they can share that with their attorneys and get that feedback. So hopefully in the next few months, we'll be able to bring that to you guys as an agreement. But some of those duties that are in there, so increase promotion for job growth, provide an annual report, invest in business growth and retention, market economic opportunities, act as a liaison with the Department of Commerce, provide a return on investment for prospective companies, assist with workforce development, review applications for incentives. So it's things that we're doing already, but it's just putting it in a document that we all sign and formalize it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for your support of economic development and all you do.
Thank you, Beth. Thanks, Beth.
Next up, we'll hear from Newton Land Bank.
Sure, I'll take it. Thank you.
Sure.
Last minute addition here is the Newton Land Bank. I think they gave me 20 minutes. I hope we're not talking about the land bank for 20 minutes, but here we go. Land bank personnel, we don't pay anybody at this moment for services. Everything's just kind of included, so I thought I'd list our current board of trustees. We have one slot that we're hoping to fill here by the next meeting in June, or this month, and then myself, I'm the secretary and now newly elected treasurer for the land bank, so this is our personnel. And we do get help from various players. Obviously, Chris here with legal side of things, Donna on the financial side. So, I mean, there's other players that attend our meetings, but that's the bulk of us. Am I not?
Or did it die?
There we go. Okay. Land bank responsibilities. In a sense, we are the property manager for the city of Newton. With property acquisition, property management, property disposition, and community revitalization, all kind of grouped there together. I have a couple people on my board. I'll name Brian Donnelly. He's one of our champions. He goes around and finds lots that are vacant or maybe have a house in disrepair on it, just to see if there's something we can get cycled through the land bank, run the channels. The land bank is not a silver bullet. It is not it's just a handy tool to have to hopefully bring in some distressed properties, because a lot of times the properties that are coming into the land bank, this is their last chance for redevelopment. They're at their end. So he brings me properties. A lot of his end game, though, is a lot of times to get that lot restored or rehabilitated and then possibly roll over to Habitat for Humanity. So that's the reason he's on the board, is his position there with Habitat for Humanity. Property management, once those properties are in the bank and they become the responsibility of the bank. So we get a weed letter just like anybody else would. So we have the property management side of the house where it could be standard lawn care. So that's we've contracted with Suzanne and her people to take care of those properties for us. And you will see here in the budget slide that's one of our line items. Community revitalization. Again, this is a chance for us to get property back into qualified developer hands. It's not a competition to take away prime stock from like our realtors or any of that nature. That's not the intent of the land bank. It is to get distressed properties, rehabilitate them, whether that's clearing taxes, title work, whatever needs to be done. There could be a demo situation that we need to address. So just basically repackaging that and increasing that stock and then putting that back out to the market. We'll try this. I'll let you do it.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. So our objectives, number one, is for this year is to develop and implement land acquisition policies. What drives us right now? We just sold our first property, 118 South Kansas, to Carlos Kitchen. That was one of the two properties that you all had deeded over to the land bank to let us kind of trial by fire on these to see how our processes were working. So we finally closed on it in May. So we have some money in the bank now, or we'll have money in the bank. But to drive us further, how do we get other properties, whether that be through the tax sales where they go through the gamut and they're the undesirable properties. They don't even go to tax sale. That could be something that the land bank starts taking those properties that don't go at tax sale and just keep rolling over, and hopefully we can acquire those, manage those, but we need a good policy to drive that engine and make sure that we're going at a one team, one dream and how we acquire properties. So acquire and manage properties, that goes along with the property acquisition policy, and create a robust marketing strategy. Right now we have the one property on 11th Street, but right now we're not marketing it for sale because we don't have anything set up, whether that's do we contract with realtor services? Do we make our own signage? Do we make our own Zillow? However, we need to go about that. But that's what we're looking to do this year and into next year, is create that robust marketing strategy. And then facilitate property redevelopment. Again, that's just what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get it over the hump, or rehabilitate these properties and get them back back on the tax rails is the ultimate game. And then, yeah. And then very basic, Donna, as I was putting this together, she's like, well, all these could go under like fees and commissions. And I go, I know, but then I would have like no line items to show you anything that it would all be under fees and commissions. So I did a little bit of breakdown here, what the title work and closing costs were. Our signs of marketing, that would just be to get our own kind of real estate signs to put on the properties themselves, to list them, and whatever makeup goes into creating kind of that Zillow effect for our land bank properties on our website. And then you see the fees and commissions are actually like our banking fees, and we're not sure if that's even going to be a thing where interest charges us $10 a month for our account, to be determined, but we've at least budgeted for it. And then mowing, we just have the one lot. We feel that will cover it. And then maintenance and demo, we don't know. Right now, we don't have anything to maintain or demo at the moment on our current property, but we just put it in there just in case, because I'm sure we will acquire a property that will have a demo situation at some point, so we need to be mindful of that. And then my proposed budget for revenues for 2025, that is the sale of that is what our current valuation on the lot we have on 11th Street is, like $7,400 and I think $60 is the valuation on the appraised value from the county. We sell all of our lots at 75% of that appraised value. So that $5,595, that's 75% of the appraised value at today's market. So that's what we would sell that lot for, and I'm hopefully we sell it this year, but if not, I'm hoping we sell it in 2025 and have that problem. But that's the lay of the land bank at the moment. So I could stand for questions or get into the weeds on some things, but pretty basic.
So Don, if we don't spend the $2,500 demo in 2025, does that carry over to 2026? You spend it or leave it?
It's each budget period, it's just like the city is.
Okay, I didn't know if you put it into an account and it accumulates.
It just kind of stays in the land bank fund, because it is all by itself. It is not a city
Okay.
department.
Right, okay.
So it's going to be set up and have its own fund.
That's what
So
I
the
was
money
asking.
stays in there, whatever you get.
Yeah.
We did, what we have to do is have to set a budget as if it was like a city department, though.
Right.
So they're going to have to go through, you have to approve this budget at your next meeting, and then they have to go through, their commission approves it, and then they set a time to publicize it, and then they have to have a public hearing as well.
Okay.
So they really don't have any budget authority to spend this year, because we didn't go through that last year for '24.
Yeah.
So anything that he needs, the city will probably pay out of EcoDevo, and then they can pay us back in '25 or whatever we decide to do.
Okay.
But it's just, we have to get it going for '25 for sure.
But their revenues remain in their accounts, so if they
right.
don't spend it on expenses, it's still their revenues.
It's still there.
In
Like
future
the
years.
golf
So
course.
it's like the.
Yeah,
right.
it's just a total fund by itself.
Okay.
Well, Zach, make this successful, and then reporting next year, I'd like to see the number of properties, both in commercial and residential, how many were added, how many were sold, but you can't do that in year one, so.
No, not at all.
Go forth and prosper.
Thank you.
May I ask a question to clarify, because I'm also trying to understand how our land bank works and how robust we want to be with our land bank. Currently, the land bank doesn't have any funding per se. We have one property that hasn't been sold, so essentially we have the revenue of the property for $3,000. So we have $3,000 in the bank. Depending on what this body wishes to plant into this fund, that is how either robust or non-robust we will be in the land bank. So $3,000 may or may not buy us a little piece of land at an auction. If we receive no monies separate from what we have, I think the concentration will be on working on getting properties donated, and perhaps strategizing on what the biggest bang for our buck on that $3,000. If you'd like to see a more robust land bank program, there would need to be money set aside and put into this land bank. I just wanted to make that clear. Is that?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
Well stated.
So if we thought we might buy a few properties next year, we probably need to put $25,000 in there or a number.
Or a number.
That we agree on.
Right.
Yeah.
And some communities, that's how they roll their demo work too. So they roll their demo funds into the land bank, knowing that the land bank is going to acquire these properties that are going to have these demo issues, and let the Board of Trustees decide, with your guidance obviously, but decide the demo properties. That's just another way to look at that as well.
Why don't you guys talk about that and give us a recommendation? After we see where everybody else is at.
That's right.
There may not
I'm saying, wait a minute.
may not be any blood left in that turnip.
That's right. And I would hate to see all the demolition funds rolled over there, because we have a lot of cleanup that Suzanne has to do that we just have to do because, not because it's land bank property, because it's just people's property.
I'm not trying to take all the demo money, Donna. I was just saying that, just saying that.
Yeah. Not all demos are created equal. You know, some
Right.
years we have a $60,000 to $100,000 demo, another year it might be $3,300. So
In years we didn't do demo because we didn't think we had the money.
exactly.
Would it be
We-
cheaper to demo after fire went in and did their little funness with the property?
Yeah, even those, there's still the cleanup stuff. So yeah. I mean, not all demos are created equal.
And we need to really come, if we're going to do something like that, we need to come up with it before Tuesday so they can get the budget approved.
Sure. I also want to, in my experience, your seed money for the land bank is inserted into the fund, and then it's supposed to self-sustain. That 75% policy, along with your how your program is built, is to make sure that you're making money on the properties that you're selling, and mixing that with requested donations. I mean, it's supposed to self-sustain. So after you plant that money in here, the hope is that you don't have to do that again.
Could we take some of the proceeds off of that contract we just did, where we're going to get, what, 169, whatever, and put some of that money into the,
I'm not following what you're.
on the
Lincoln Park.
Lincoln
Park.
Schoolhouse.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The block grant money. That might be something to look at.
Have seed money
That
from
might
that.
be a way, at least we're going to be putting it back into real estate that way and creating housing, more than likely creating housing.
Beautification, right?
Yeah.
I know mixed infill development is something that we don't necessarily strategize. It's part of the plan, but I would like to see redeveloping of lots in town that could have a house that might clean up some of our streets or older neighborhoods.
Yep.
Okay.
The GO bonds.
Oh, no. This is your big sheets. So get out your big sheets, people. It's just so hard to see all this, because you did ask me to go out 10 years, and when we have to get Suzanne involved for the CIP, and there's a lot on here. This is our usual budget, just so you see where we are. This is what we have coming in 2025. This includes our bond issue that we're going to do this September, October time frame for the library, Autumn Glen, some other projects I can't think of right now. Full Vision.
They're at the top of the CIP sheet.
Yeah, okay, let's go there. For Cow Palace Sewer, yeah. Fox Ridge, we did not finish in time to get on the calendar to be able to do all the specials, so that'll be carried over to the next bond issue. C-CLIP this year is going to be on there, but that's already included in the 2025 budget. While taxes go in there, property tax, of course, the mill levy currently is at 9.109. If you remember, we took a mill out of here to help our general fund last year. Harvey County reimburses us for a few of the projects that we've done with them. It goes in this fund. Special assessments go in this fund. The other ones we have, most of our specials all run 20 years. They're paid by the lot owner. There are a few assessments that the city pays, and so it shows us a negative amount on your forecast sheet with the light blue lines. Sand Ridge Color Corp is one of them that it comes to mind. They have 3 lots that when they purchased it, we said we would pay for the specials through 2026. We also have the golf course special assessments through the PBC, which is $2,400 per assessment, which is about $21,000, and that falls off this year. So that one's over. And then anybody who wants to pay specials can pay them early, and we just keep them in this fund. This is just a chart of the actual debt that we have right now and how it gets paid. We have $45 million worth of debt. Specials is $7 million of that. Eco Devo Fund, which is the sales tax, pays for $10 million of that. Airport has a little bit. And then wastewater is 8.8. And water 2 million. And the TIF, which that will fall off in 2030, is another $1 million. And then, of course, the GO bond pays for everything else. And that is what the tax levy is for. Okay, we get to the big sheet, and I've just tried to put our budget of 24 on here, and then you can see our revenue of ad valorem tax, and then our motor vehicle tax that's in there, and then our transfers from all the funds, and where we come out. The very bottom is where you can see our mill levy actual at 9.109, and we can sustain that until 2027. And then it looks like we have to go up to maintain our 5% policy reserve. And I've just kind of in the bottom just put a what if. If all these projects get done, this is what we might have to do for the mill levy to carry them all. But this is all after you go 2 or 3 years in forecasting. It's just huge because all the expenses are just put in there at a percentage increasing every year. There's no human thought in it. There's nothing like that. So it's just kind of an exercise to see what would happen if this would all happen. So it kind of gives you an idea of where we're headed, but it's not anything that is written in stone. And
Okay,
then
I let my mind drift a little bit. Sorry.
That's okay.
But when you said it went up to like 11.109, are you projecting some valuation increase
Yes,
into that? Okay.
yes.
You probably said, and I was not listening.
So that 11.1 is valuation, an estimated valuation increase as well as all projects on the CIP?
Just a 2 mil increase.
Yes. You'll see over here on the side, it says city assessed valuation. And that's, you can see it goes up every year. The 2025, I've just put 5% in there. It's kind of what I'm hanging at right now until we find out for sure. And then it goes up the next year to 164 million. Then it goes up 170 million. Kind of, that's kind of a slope calculation that the WSU has done for us, and they kind of say this is what it might be in the future. Of course, they can't do the highs and lows like we've seen in the past. Some of these years we've gone up 10%, so that's probably not in there.
And the assessed value, your definition of that is the property that we're receiving tax on, which would include abatements that fall off
And get taken.
New properties that are added.
Yeah, and that isn't really, it's not that finite.
Yeah.
So that's not included. It also doesn't include the ones that will
Yeah.
go on,
Yeah.
you know. So they kind of just, that kind of is just in the
Could
future.
be higher, could be lower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you see down at the bottom of the sheet is how I pulled it in from her CIP. On the CIP listing, she's put what she thinks could happen in those years and what it might cost. And so then we've done a bond payment on that amount and where it would come from. So I know where to put it on this front page, and you can see I have transfers every year. I know where they're coming in the future. And then I have new, and that's from her CIP over here, this one sheet, and it feeds over here. So that's how I get my bonded interest payments each year.
And know that these are shown the bonding year. On this CIP, this is the bonding year. And Donna always needs this way ahead of when I have the CIP caught up. This is the year that we would be looking at a a 5-year update. We kind of look at these in 5-year groupings for all the projects that are forthcoming. And so I'm working on that update. This is what I've got right now, understanding that what she really needs is for the 2025 budget. So I'm pretty solid on 25. After that,
It's just a forecast.
it's a forecast. It's the best educated guess we've got at this point, but.
And sometimes I can't follow her sheet when I put over here at the very bottom where it says 23, 24 projects, 24. I have to kind of break them up because we'll be so far in the hole that one year. So I can kind of, we're fortunate enough that I can carry projects for a couple years if I have to with the money that we have in the bank. And we don't have to pay, fees for having temporary funds and that kind of thing. So I can hold on a little longer sometimes when we used to do bond issues about every other year. Now we're kind of doing them every year because we have so many projects going. But sometimes you just have to stop and take a breath and kind of catch up. So you can see I've skipped a couple years in 28 and 30 just to kind of, so it won't be so hard on us. But that's all in the future. But that's when you get there, that's when you can have human thought in it all.
The other thing to keep in mind when you're looking at the bonding schedule with the proposed CIP, we're also making some assumptions about possible KDOT funding and where that really falls in the mix. You never know. Those are the ones highlighted in orange. And then those that would be special assessments that would be that would receive, we would receive funding from special assessments from other entities would come in. Those are shown in green.
And when we would receive the specials, I've tried to put them in over here to show that we would get that funding. So it's not just a dark hole that everything's going in.
And there are also projects that are going to come up. There could be something come up tomorrow that's not even shown on this, that especially special assessment projects based on developers that are coming forward wanting to move projects forward. These are just the best guess at this point in time.
And then there's always the issue of our debt limit. And so this gets calculated by our financial advisors every year. And as of right now, we have 24 million in debt authority remaining. So we're sitting very well. We're not getting, for a while there, I thought we might hit that, but things have fallen off before the library comes on. So we're at a really good place where we need to be.
On the First Street widening, Spencer to Hillside, is your bond amount correct? Should that be $1,936,000? Funded by others is half.
No, and let me tell you why. Some of these are a little bit oddball. This one, this was making some big fat assumptions.
Okay, I assumed that there was some assumption.
There's a big fat
there,
assumption
yeah.
here that if we were able to do this, that we might have a funding partner in the county. Whether they would actually approve that, I don't know. But if they would approve it, I think they would ask us to be carrying the bonds, and so we would be bonding for the full amount. So some of these may not follow the normal pattern. That's actually one that Donna goes,
So the
hey, what
bond
did you do
payment
here?
would be our half of the bond payment. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
would-
that's what you see Harvey County reimbursements come in, the revenue.
Yeah.
That's
it's
from
that.
them
Okay.
when they
I'm
partnered
you.
with us.
And we don't know if that's going to come to play, but it's some of these things that we're just
Well, if we want that to be a
trying to think forward,
world-class-
look forward.
Yeah.
Don't get what you don't ask for. right?
Yeah, the other thing that when Donna was talking about debt limit, so that you don't get confused on that if you're looking at the CIP sheet itself, again, bonding year, and then there's a total that shows the subject to debt limit. That definitely does not add up the full total, because certain projects are not subject to the debt limit, so don't
Water-
be confused by that either.
Yeah, it's storm and sanitary sewer, utilities like water, and then certain street repairs. If the street's in front of a city or a school or the intersections, they don't count towards your debt limit.
Okay. How close to our debt ceiling are we getting through all this? Not very close?
No, like this year, we're at 24.
Yeah.
About 25 million we have left remaining to spend.
Okay.
So we're fine.
There have been years when we were much lower than
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we
so-
were at 18 or so.
Well, that's what
before,
I
and it's like-
remember, between 18 and 20, and,
And then we were going to do the library, and it's like,
yeah,
ooh.
yeah, I know, it's gonna be real close. Let's sweat a little bit. But
But
20,
we have about 4 million fall off every year from old debt. So it's just a cycle. We just can't get too far ahead of that falling off.
well, and it's much, much better to operate with the 24 margin as opposed to, so let's just keep doing that.
Oop, oop. Yes, exactly. And then this here kind of shows what is each of our debt right now and how much is exempt, because there was water, sewer, or a few little streets in there. That kind of helps you come up with that calculation.
Well, the other thing to maybe point out here is when we have some of these water and sewer projects that are large projects, if we have a low-interest loan through the state, then that doesn't count.
That's not
That doesn't even show up here because the loan is via the state. It's not something that we're carrying on the books. We have to pay for it, but
Yeah.
Each utility has their own little bonded interest fund. It's called that money they transfer it to, and then we pay it out of there. So it doesn't come in here at all.
It's budgeted through them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Through your enterprise.
Is there any other questions on bond and interest that you have? I know it's kind of hard to follow, but
This is a kitchen table project.
it is a big kitchen table.
Yes.
One thing, I'll just kind of cover a few things. We do have a budget workshop scheduled for 5 o'clock before the next meeting on the 11th. We had kind of put that down as tentative. Is everybody going to do that? Or the one before, the second meeting, we can have one there? Because I have not
Yeah,
received
that's
evaluation yet, so I can't give you any clear indication.
The 11th and the 25th.
Yeah.
That's what I had down on my calendar.
And so we're going to keep going, and we'll have some more big picture, because we kind of got through all the little stuff now. And now we'll bring some of the other forecasts and what things are going to look like. And that's when the nitty gritty.
I will be in Pincher Creek, Alberta, Canada, Tuesday night,
Okay,
but I'll be here for the
the second one.
second one, yes.
Okay.
That's, I think so. Everybody still want to go ahead with the 11th?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
we
next one?
need it.
Okay,
We need it, and we'll get what we can get done, and
little by little. I've just kind of showed you what the mill levy is right now. I've left them all the same as they were this past year. And there's some nuances to the R&R that the state has changed, and I'll explain those to you as we get closer to having to figure that out. But it's just a little different. It's all about the money now and not about the mill. So they're looking at it a little different, and they've changed the form that gets sent out to everybody, hopefully making it easier to read. So we'll see about that.
Hope.
Yeah. But this is where the 5 property tax supported funds are and what it looks like. So you can kind of tell what we're doing. You can see the shortfall in the library and in the general fund. Bond and interest, it's a shortfall here, but they have the funds. Remember, we were going to pay that library, we've been putting it in there for 2 years. So we're okay for a few years we have too much in our ending balance. We're just supposed to maintain about 5%. So that's how we can go so long without having to raise the mill in that fund. We kind of banked it. So we're good. And the last slide is the one that Kathy likes so well. Just kind of shows you what I'm looking at. I have the 24 adopted budget, and then I have some estimates of what I think our money might come in if things continue in this crazy world like they are. But we think we're going to end up better on our sales tax and our use of money, which is our interest. And we had a little more money through interest in our ARPA funds that we're going to bring over. So I think we're going to end up better. That's our estimation. And this is if we spend every penny of our expense budget, which we try not to do that, but we are covered if we need to. And then the 25 budget, I have used the valuation as an increase of 5%, which we think's low, hopefully. It'll be higher than that, but that's what I've used in this one. The new positions that we've all talked about is $272,000 down here at the bottom. I kind of added that in there, and you can see what those are. Engineering, IT, street, park, and finance. And a lot of that is for succession planning.
Denied. You don't get to go nowhere.
But hopefully this will kind of help you, and we'll have this again at our next workshop so we can talk about it even more after you look at it and have some questions. Does anybody have anything else they want to add from us?
I might,
Go ahead.
just a clarification. The box where you're showing the new positions, those are included in the numbers?
Yes.
Just so that,
I pulled them out so we could have a total, because they wanted, last few years, they want to know that total.
yeah, right.
But yeah,
I
they're
just
all,
wanted to make sure that that was
we've all
clear.
talked about them,
Those
they're
are
included.
included in those
Right.
numbers.
Yes. It's always easier to include everything, and then if you need to pull something out, you can see what it does. The reason we went so down in 2025 is because the ARPA fund, that was pretty good benefit for our city. Every year having 700,000 to 800,000 added. So that's going to be missed. But thank goodness our sales tax has kind of stepped up, and
Yeah, interest income.
The interest income is great. The stacking of the cost to the general public isn't when it's,
right.
Sales tax. If we had the sales tax numbers that could tell us the true story, which we don't because it's run through the state and not through a local,
And it's run through the county.
then
Yeah.
we would be able to see is that increased spending on quantity of goods, or is that increased spending on cost of goods? And we all know what that answer is. We just can't back it up with data. And then you turn around and tack on an increase in valuations,
Yeah, it's
which
not,
is an increase in property tax and everything. We still have to do what we can to be good stewards to our
Right.
community. So it's not as, it's good from a financial aspect to know that that's there, but the reality is it's painful across the board to the GP.
it's good enough that we don't need to we don't need to look at raising the mills or anything like
Right.
that. So that's what's good, hopefully,
The lesser,
the lesser of
yes.
the evils.
Thank you, Donna.
And if you need anything before next Tuesday, let me know if there's something you want to see, but
Okay.
I'll have a lot more stuff
Okay.
for you.
All right. Thank you.
A lot of hard work.
Agenda review on Thursday morning, and we will be probably holding an executive session at that time.
Did everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All fair?